All right, let's get a drive time Monday afternoon. We're about 9 minutes past the hour, 2 o'clock. It's a nice day today. It's about 68 degrees and clear here in downtown Salt Lake City, Utah. Chilly weekend behind. Looks like a chilly weekend ahead. We might get some rain and cold for this big game coming up at Rice-Eccles Stadium on Saturday night at 8:15 Mountain Time. That Utah ASU game will be televised on ESPN, and, of course, it can be heard right here on ESPN 700. Porter will have you taken care of with pregame coverage on the radio side beginning just after 4 o'clock on Saturday. Of course, we will get you ready for that game, not just today, but all week. It's a massive game for Utah football. So we'll preview it with Arizona State moving up to 21 in the AP, even though they were idle this weekend, just like Utah was. BYU gets a win on Friday night in Provo, 38-24 against West Virginia. Did not cover that 18.5-point spread, but we're never really in danger of losing that football game. A couple of red zone turnovers. We did see young Bear Bachmeier turn the ball over for the first time. 17 quarters for Bear as a quarterback without turning the football over. He threw a pick and lost a fumble. BYU will be on the road on Saturday night to take on Arizona, which could be like a sneaky, tough matchup for them. We'll get you ready for that game. We'll talk some Big 12 football on the show today. And, of course, all week long, got a good guest list today. Excited to kind of dig into it with some Week 6 takeaways in the world of college football that saw a lot of consequential upsets. James Franklin, my goodness, Penn State, what are we doing here? Nico Iamaleava looked like the quarterback that we thought he would be and the quarterback that he was in Tennessee. A massive, massive upset that nobody saw coming at all. Texas and Arch Manning go down to the swamp and they get got by Florida. I don't know that this criticism that Arch is receiving is all that fair. He was sacked 6 times again. They cannot protect the quarterback or run the football at all. Bama, little payback against Vandy. They got it done. Texas Tech appears to be the front runner at this point to win the Big 12, dismantling Houston on the road. Tech's good. They just are. We saw it here live in Salt Lake City with the way they handled Utah at Rice-Eccles. And is it time to pay a little more attention to Cincinnati, who beat Iowa State at home? That was a great football game. Cincinnati got off to a hot start, and they held on at the end, 38-30, your final score there. So we'll get into the landscape of college football. In both pro and college football, a lot of just random upsets, a lot of random outcomes. And that's what makes the sport great. That's what makes it exciting. That's why we talk about the unpredictable nature of both college and pro football week to week. I have no idea how the Cardinals lost. It was a wild ending. It was the first day in NFL history where 2 4-0 teams lost at home, as the Eagles, who were up 14 points in the fourth, lost to the Denver Broncos. And then Sunday Night Football saw a lot of plays being made by some former Utes, namely Dalton Kincaid, who had a really good game, and Cole Bishop had his first career sack. But the Patriots went to Western New York and beat Buffalo for the first time in the last 15 tries. They had been 0-14 prior to that outcome. So, random weekend in the world of football that we'll be unpacking today on the show and all week long to get you ready for Utah, Arizona State, get you ready for BYU, Arizona. BYU moves up to 18 in the AP poll after beating West Virginia and Provo. And BYU and Utah, really the next 4 games, 5 weeks-ish, massive conference implications at stake, of course. And I think both these two teams have shown that they have the ability to have something to say about this entire thing at the end when it comes to the Big 12 landscape. So we'll get to it on the show today. The Utah Jazz continue training camp. The first preseason game will be on Wednesday night at 6 o'clock in Houston. The Jazz will take on the Rockets, the new-look Rockets with one Kevin Durant. Not sure that we'll see him play very much. Saw some preseason NBA action over the weekend, so it is almost time to dig into the pro basketball side of things, and almost time to talk Alex Jensen, almost time to talk Kevin Young and the local college hoops landscape as well. Gut check time for RSL. Local soccer club got it done over the weekend against the hated rival Colorado Rapids, or as JP likes to call them, the Crapids. Let's call them who they are. 1-0 your final. A lot of RSL fans frustrated that Pablo did not push to get the second goal to win the Rocky Mountain Cup. But let me just say this, with all due respect to this Rocky Mountain Cup situation, I think you'd rather be in the playoffs, and if you push forward, allow a counterattack goal, you're basically dead in the water. RSL has 2 road matches to finish things off. Hopefully they'll be on the right side of the playoff line so we at least can get a little playoff soccer. Diego Luna will not be available Neither will Brian Ojeda, as both those two have been called up to play for their countries. Little U.S. men's national team duty for Diego, who appears to have potentially locked in his spot on this roster as the World Cup is about 9 months away. And obviously that will be played in our region. A wild, bizarre story regarding former Jets quarterback Mark Sanchez, who's now facing a felony charge for an altercation with a 69-year-old truck driver early Saturday. It was one of those things, you get the alert on your phone, and you're like, wait, what? The alert initially was Mark Sanchez had been stabbed and was taken to the hospital. And obviously horrific news no matter how it happened. And then like a couple hours later, you get the alert that, wait, he has been arrested. And then this morning it came down that he's facing a felony battery charge, level 5 felony charge that includes involving serious bodily injury, public intoxication. And it's really hard to understand exactly what happened. When you read the details, there was like a truck driver that was backing into a hotel bay, and Sanchez felt like he suddenly was like security, went to confront him, clearly out of his mind on something. But a really bizarre story in the world of, I guess, NFL or college football. Mark Sanchez is facing a felony charge. Major League Baseball playoffs have moved into the divisional series. The Yankees have run into a Toronto Blue Jays team that is just raking. The Yankees Blue Jays will resume tomorrow, but at least we beat the Red Sox. Yeah, I said we. Deal with it. The Utah Mammoth will begin the season this week, Thursday, 7 o'clock Mountain Time, after winning a couple of preseason games here in Salt Lake. So it's also time to talk a little hockey on the program. Of course, we'll have our buddy Neil Smith throughout the year. Great hockey guest to give us kind of an analysis of the league and where we're at right now in the landscape of the NHL. All right, good guest list today. Start things off with one of my favorites, Max Brown, former USC quarterback who is now with ESPN, covers college football. We'll do some Big 12. We'll do some Utes, some BYU with Max right off the top. Scott Mitchell, former Utah quarterback, will join us for his weekly hit. Coach Witt addressed the media today, as he is often wont to do on the Monday of a game week, as Arizona State will be in town on Saturday. We'll bring that sound to you coming up at 3:30 on the show today. Blaine Fowler, my buddy Blaine Fowler, former BYU quarterback, will stop by to talk some Big 12. Do a little RSL today with Kurt Schmidt, the chief roster architect. All of their titles change every week. If only they had a competent VP of communications, that would be nice. Just kidding, Trey. I know you're listening. Don't pretend like you're not. So Kurt Schmidt will stop by today, and then we'll go from there. When we say goodnight, it will be time for the final game of the pro football weekend of Week 5 of the NFL. It's the Chiefs and the Jags tonight. Only one Monday Night Football game, which I kind of like. Chiefs-Jags tonight in Jacksonville will conclude Week 6 of pro football. So Max Brown, Scott Mitchell, Blaine Fowler, Kurt Schmidt, little sound from Coach Witt, me, Spence Checketts, all of you, the great listeners, hello, happy Monday. And that guy, Porter Larson, did the rain/snow harsh or mellow at all over the weekend as you were wanting to get outside and hunt with a camera and such? Oh,
it was
really?
awesome.
Did you get outside?
I mean, I did. I didn't get out into the boonies and get drenched, but it was nice. There were some breaks in the storm, and it was good to see all the water. So I'm not going to complain about it. It was good, and it was a bye week, so it didn't disrupt any football, at least here locally. Lost some shekels at Prize Picks and had a good weekend otherwise.
You fired up a Prize Picks lineup, huh?
Yeah.
Well,
there were some incentives.
It ebbs and flows. Yeah, and take advantage of the incentives. I mean, that's what you should always do.
Right.
Are we getting closer and
in
closer?
Moderation.
Are we? Oh, yes. No. Look, little advice, kids, on a Monday, right out of the gates. What you cannot moderate, you must eliminate.
There you go.
Are we getting close to the Britney Spears, Porter Larson annual Shave Your Head Day?
You're awaiting that.
Your hair is as long as I've ever seen it.
It is. No, it's been quite a bit longer, but it's pretty long since I've been doing radio.
You look like you could go on tour with the Wood Brothers right now. You could be like a third Wood Brother.
Thank you.
They're awesome.
Thank you.
I love the Wood Brothers. Excellent, excellent band if you haven't seen them. All right, our first guest today to break down the weekend behind in college football and look ahead to what will lie ahead for the Utes and the Cougars is Max Brown. But before we get to Max, courtesy of the aforementioned Prize Picks on a Monday afternoon, it's time now for your opening tip.
Welcome to The Drive with Spence Checketts on Utah's #1 sports talk. Now into the studios of ESPN 700 to set the scene for the show. The opening tip of the drive is brought to you by Prize Picks. Use the code ESPN700 and run your game with Prize Picks.
All right, don't forget, Prize Picks is the best place to win cash on the Broncos, on the Niners, on the Raiders, whichever your favorite team is. Which players are going off? Which ones are overhyped? You can make your picks in less than 60 seconds and turn your takes into cash all season long on Prize Picks. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 players' stat projections, and you can win up to 2,000 times your money. It's very easy. It's different than some of the other platforms that might have you a little bit confused. So our good friends at Prize Picks, first and foremost, they are offering you free money, which you should always take advantage of. So what you do is you download the Prize Picks app today and use the promo code ESPN700. And they're going to give you $50 when you play your first $5 lineup. You do not even have to win that lineup. They're just going to put $50 in your account. So download the Prize Picks app today. Use the promo code ESPN700 to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup on Prize Picks. It is good to be right. Game week for the Utes. We're back at it after a bye week last week. Arizona State is in town on Saturday nights to take on Utah. So it's an 8:15 kick. It will be on ESPN, and, of course, you can hear it on this radio station as we are your home of the Utes. So early line was Utah minus 4.5. That's where it opened. The over-under 48.5. Money line is Arizona State plus 170, Utah minus 200. Okay, so it has moved. Already it's moved towards the Utes a full point. So people like the line early. They put some money on Utah. That line has moved in the direction of the Utes as we sit here right now. Utah is a 5.5-point favorite to beat Arizona State coming up on Saturday night. ASU moved up to number 21 in the AP, even though they were idle a week ago, like Utah was. They had a bye week. Arizona State undefeated in conference, and then they're 4-1 overall. Now, they've played 2 Big 12 teams, but I believe the Baylor game was a non-con game that was already scheduled when Arizona State was in the Pac-12. So Utah, of course, 4-1 overall. Last time we saw them, they trounced West Virginia on the road. And this is really as big as it gets as it pertains to the landscape of the Big 12. I don't think 2 conference losses will kill your chances overall, but it might. And ultimately, it's not just the losses that you have, it's who you lose to. As Utah has already lost to who I believe to be is the class of the Big 12 this year in Texas Tech. They went down and undressed Houston. That game was not even a fair fight. And the talent, and we saw it here in Salt Lake, if you're up there live at the stadium, they really do pop. The talent is pretty obvious, and they've rebuilt their offensive and defensive lines, as we talked about. And Utah's vaunted offensive line could not keep those 2 defensive ends off the quarterback or open up any space for the running game, because that's who Texas Tech is. I mean, money talks, man. It just does. And Cody Campbell and the other powerful, rich boosters and donors at Texas Tech economically stimulating that situation to the point where the talent infusion is just very apparent. So I don't know that they'll stay clean. I think the schedule for Tech actually lines up pretty good. But Arizona State, remember, winning the conference a year ago, they lose Cam Scatteraboo, who's now doing great things with the New York Giants. And they brought in a couple of transfer running backs. This comes down to the quarterback, Sam Leavitt, who a lot of people believe is the best quarterback in this conference. Utah, at this point, will now run up into a little bit of a stretch where they're going to face a lot of dual-threat quarterbacks, a lot of quarterbacks that can get out and make plays with Sam Leavitt, ASU, and then, of course, Bear Bachmeier with BYU down in Provo coming up in just a couple of weeks. And by Coach Witt's own admission, and we'll hear from Kyle coming up at 3:30 today, it's odd to talk about a Utah football team that has struggled with missed tackles. That's typically something that we don't see as it pertains to a struggle with the Utes. But when it comes to these 2 quarterbacks and their ability to make plays out of the pocket, you're going to have to clean some of that up, or you could get got. And if you lose to ASU on Saturday night, that is 2 conference losses to 2 teams that will probably be in the mix down the stretch. So then Utah loses the tiebreaker to both Texas Tech and Arizona State. The question comes down to which version of Devin Dampier, right, will we see? Against subpar competition, Devin has shined. The one good team they played so far, at least my estimation, Devin had a tough time. And I know the spin afterwards was like the injury stuff, which I just hate that. I just hate after like a game where you don't play well. It's like, oh, yeah, he was hurt. And you can't say that and then out of the other side of your mouth be like, well, that's not an excuse. No, it is if you bring it up. So hopefully the bye week has allowed Devin to be completely healthy, and some of the other players that were banged up, Jackson, Benny, and others. We have not heard any season-ending injuries, which, of course, is good news for Utah, because you're going to need your full complement to beat a really good team coming up Saturday night at 8:15, 10:15 East Coast time, 8:15 local time at Rice-Eccles Stadium. BYU handled West Virginia pretty easily. The final score, if you didn't watch the game and you saw the score, you're like, oh, did they kind of struggle? That was closer than we thought. No, it was really 2 red zone turnovers from young Bear Bachmeier that allowed that game to look even kind of close. They were never in doubt of losing it. And for, the turnover issues Bear had, we saw a tremendous amount of just big chunk plays, an 85-yard pass to Chase, 54-yard pass to Parker Kingston. We saw L.J. Martin break off like a 35-yard run. L.J. had a couple of more touchdowns. And Bear with a career-high 351 yards. His QBR was about 88. So a good, solid game for Bear Bachmeier and BYU. They hit the road to take on an Arizona team now that is just one of those teams that feels like in the mix. Probably not an elite team in conference, but they're 4-1. They've lost their only game to an AP 5 team. This line opened, AP top 25 team, I should say. This line opened BYU favored by 2.5. It has moved towards Arizona. And as we sit here today on a Monday afternoon, BYU is favored by 1.5 points as they will travel to take on Arizona. So big week ahead, big weekend ahead in college football and the landscape of the Big 12, both locally and nationally. A wild weekend behind with a lot of upsets. Number 1 and 2 teams in the AP to start the year, Texas and Penn State. And both those programs ran into it over the weekend. So we'll break it all down. We'll catch a quick break. But coming up next, more college football with our buddy Max Brown. Off and running on a Monday edition of The Drive. And as always, it's good to have you along for the ride right here on ESPN 700. All right, I just want to say this. I'm not a LeBron hater. You know I'm not a LeBron hater. You know, no, don't shake your head. I know that you're, as the kids say, I know that you're a stan.
Yeah.
And I'm about to impress you. I'm being dead ass. Huh? What?
I don't know I don't know if that's going to impress me. But.
Just a 47-year-old being able to relate to the young people.
I like it.
You know I'm not a LeBron hater. You know that I'm not.
Kind of.
No, I'm not. I just think Jordan's better and always will. There's nothing that will ever convince me. But your boy is he's so thirsty. He's just so dramatic. Like, ready? Here we go. Do less.
Yes. Okay.
It's a little extra, is it not?
We've done this before. He goes, he leans into it a little bit. On the same token, I mean, what has he known otherwise since he was 14 years old? Spence, when I was a 17-year-old kid, I had a poster of a 16-year or whatever, however old LeBron was, on my wall. Right? Like, you go back and it's like he's been in this the whole time. So what else does he do? I also think whatever this announcement is kind of just an oversell for like a podcast or something on Amazon.
So LeBron is tweeting out second decision coming tomorrow, and people are surmising it means he's. So my guess is he's going to announce he's retired at the end of the year, and that way every road trip he takes, people can lather him in gifts and such.
I'll go. I'll go with like flowers and stuff.
Well, I know you will.
Maybe he's going to New York.
I doubt it. I seriously doubt that. LeBron apparently is making a massive announcement tomorrow. And look, I guess his approach works because we're talking about it, and that's all he wants. All right, college football time. One of our favorites, Max Brown, batting leadoff on a Monday afternoon. Max, happy Monday, man. How we doing?
What's up, Spence? Doing well. How are you?
I'm good. I appreciate the time. I want to start with a question about Arch Manning. I don't feel like he has time. I mean, sacked 6 times again over the weekend. And yes, heavy is the head that wears the crown of a Manning with the last name. If you're playing college quarterback, I understand that. But he also has not looked the way that we thought he would. You played the position. What's fair to say about the early returns of young Arch Manning?
Yeah, and I did a full, funny enough, this is a shameless plug, full Arch Manning YouTube breakdown. Should be out here in like 30 minutes on my channel, so check it out. But I actually think, because I saw a couple people with that take of, the offense line's not playing great, and yes, I think that's certainly a factor, and Florida definitely got pressure with 4. But I also think, when the standard of, hey, if you want to be a top SEC quarterback or top quarterback in the country, I do think Arch needs to have a better feel in the pocket. There's some throws in there where you can tell Sark's, teeing up, like Arch missed that home run shot down the right-hand hash, like early on in that first half. There was just a few plays in that game where, he's leaving big plays there. And yes, he's getting hit. Yes, there is pressure on him, but the quarterback in me is like, dude, you have a huge play down the field. Maybe hang back there in the pocket. Don't aggressively hitch up so much. He has a tendency to, I think, like climb in the pocket and feel like he always needs to escape. I don't think that always needs to be the case. So, yes, offensive line can be better, but I felt like his awareness within the pocket this game, and I wouldn't have necessarily said that the past few weeks, because I know it's been easy to be critical of Arch with some of the footwork and inaccurate, throws and whatnot. This, to me, was something different in the Florida game, of just a general feel in the pocket that you can tell he's just not comfortable, and it's showing through in his play.
So I had no interest in watching Penn State UCLA because we watched Utah dismantle UCLA. And when I got that alert about the halftime score, Max, I thought I thought I was getting bad information. I had to go to like a different website to make sure that score was actually the score. And look, we saw Nico Iamaleava do this last year at Tennessee. He just hadn't done it this year at all, and mostly because he doesn't have very good teammates, at least up until this weekend. Did that say more about UCLA to you or more about Penn State?
Honestly, more about Nico and what he could be. That's what really jumps out. I mean, this mess that's at UCLA, there's a weird world where we say that's the best thing that could have happened for Nico, because it allows him to change all the negative narratives around him. And, with all this Tennessee, him hopping in the portal, all the headlines that you get around Nico and the money, we've actually never heard from Nico himself about it all. He's going to have a hell of a book to write one day that I'll be pre-ordering. But I feel like this is the first game or like a step in the right direction of, you see the leadership, you see Nico putting the team on his back and, taking control of things. And I thought he played phenomenal. And when a lot of people were saying about, the trade or trade on paper in terms of Joey Aguilar, the former UCLA quarterback, going to Tennessee, and then Nico, the former Tennessee quarterback, going to UCLA. My take right there was, dude, if Nico was on the Tennessee squad, he'd be still putting up those big numbers that Aguilar is putting up. And Aguilar, if he was on UCLA, would be struggling right now. That's just the reality of the quarterback position. So a lot, Nico showed me a lot in that game. And I also think it speaks more to just the parity in general around college football, which I know we've talked about that a lot from a Big 12 lens. But, man, it really shines through, especially in the SEC this year, Big 12, of course, again, ACC a little bit as well. And, games like this, it feels like are going to happen consistently moving forward in the new era of football where, there's talent on there's talent on all these teams to varying degrees. I'm not going to say UCLA is going to, contend for a Big Ten title, but they have a very, very capable quarterback on a team that was on paper awful. You wake up on the right side of the bed and Penn State's on the wrong side of the bed. You sneak up on them and beat them.
So I'm glad you brought that up as far as this dynamic of the parity and what feels like chaos every weekend. Lane Kiffin last week gave an interview to ESPN where he said he believes the days of dynasties in college football are over. And I suppose there's an argument to be made that maybe Saban saw the writing on the wall and realized that his model probably is not going to work moving forward. Look, I'm sure he would have been just fine because we know what sort of coach and leader he is. But do you agree with what Lane had to say? And is that a good thing for the sport?
I agree with the sentiment in terms of, I think the Nick Saban dynasties are done. What could throw a wrench in this whole thing is, what if Oregon goes on to win a national title this year and there's proof of concept that, if we just become the highest bidder, no questions asked, and are first in the line with every transfer portal prospect, there's proof of concept that can lead to a national title. Like, what if there's a world? My point is that if Oregon were to double down on what they're doing, or Texas Tech is really interesting. They're obviously making noise in the Big 12, and it feels like what they did this offseason on paper so far is working. Well, what if a team and multiple donors went truly all in? And I know Oregon's all in, but even more so, if they were able to really rally even more boosters, that's where a new school dynasty could come into play, where it's, again, every single offseason, Oregon's getting their pick of the litter with the transfer portal, and you're able to, just get the best players in the country. That's how the new era of dynasty would play out. But I don't think the Saban dynasty era of stockpiling number one recruiting class after number one recruiting class, and your backup is better than the opposing team's starter. Those days are probably gone. And for that one aspect, I do think it is better for college football. I think for the health of the sport, I don't know if conference realignment was the best for college football, but I do think transfer portal and NIL and getting out of the same three teams contending for a national title, which is how it was towards the back end of my playing career, 2016, 17, into the early, 18, 19, 2020, where before the year even started, you knew it's going to be one of realistically 6 teams that have a shot at winning a national title. Nowadays, we're in one of probably 20, and I think that's phenomenal for the sport.
So you referenced Texas Tech, and, The Athletic did a really good in-depth piece on Cody Campbell, the oil tycoon booster who played for Tech once upon a time, offensive lineman for Mike Leach. And as the story goes, Max, and I'm sure you know this, Cody watching his alma mater, seeing oftentimes high-powered offenses and some of the best Mahomes, we could go down the list. They've had a grip of great QBs and a ton of really high-powered offenses, but Cody, as a lineman himself, realized they were getting beat up in the trenches. So they allocated a ton of cash to rebuild their offensive and defensive line. And I got to say, man, Utah's offensive line is as good as, by Kyle's own admission, by Coach Witt's own admission, as good as we've seen around here. And they could not keep those 2 defensive ends off Devin Dampier. They could not open up lanes for the rushing game. And after we learned that Devin was dealing with a bit of an ankle thing, but the sentiment remains, when they were here, Max, their talent popped. You could see it. Do you feel like after 5 weeks now that they have maybe separated themselves as potentially being the elite team in this conference?
I do think they're the most impressive team in the Big 12. I still have the belief that, that top tier of the Big 12 it's jumbled. I mean, conference of parity. I'm still hanging on to that. But if there was one team I had to say is the most impressive team, I would say it's Tech, and they deserve a lot of credit, man. They put all their chips towards the center of the table with this NIL process, and it's worked, at least so far on paper. And one thing that I don't know if we always talk about with the Texas Tech NIL conversation is they went out and got all sorts of different players, but they stuck with Baron Morton, their quarterback. And that Baron Morton's not a guy that was getting off-season headlines, and he's not really a guy that anyone talks about now. There's a lot of other quarterbacks in the country and probably within his own conference that get talked about more. But we talk about this from the NIL or the NFL lens, but like when you're managing a salary cap, which is what these collectives are, if you can get value at your quarterback spot, so then it frees up funds to go get other guys. And I'm not saying Baron Morton's not getting paid, but I am saying that Texas Tech didn't have to go into the portal and go invest $3-4 million in a John Mateer, which is great. Oklahoma's happy they did that, but you're able to use those funds elsewhere to support the guys around him. And I was just calling a game at my alma mater, Pitt, this past week, and Pitt benched their quarterback who had a bunch of offseason hype, and they have a defensive end who's injured, and those are their two highest NIL contracts, for lack of a better term, on their team, just sitting on the sideline. And that's a huge missed opportunity, something that we'd be hyper-focused on if it was NFL free agency. We don't always talk about that in the college ranks, and I think that was a decision by Tech to stick with Baron Morton and not necessarily say, hey, we can go get in the Nico Iamaleava sweepstakes, so to speak. It frees up money and it allows you to build a complete roster.
Well, and your points are well taken. I think what they did over the weekend against Houston indicates it's still Baron Morton's team, Max. But I'll tell you what, they've got two quarterbacks that look to be pretty good because the Will Hammond kid came in after Baron was hurt against the Utes. And Utah threw punches with Tech through three quarters. I mean, it was a one-score game after the third. Unfortunately, you got to play four. And it was Will Hammond coming in as the backup, and he took apart Utah's secondary, which not a lot of teams do. I mean, the Utes are banged up a little bit with Nate Ritchie on the sideline. Jackson Benny had to leave the game last week as well. But I think against Tech, they more or less had the full contingent. And ultimately, it was Will Hammond who came in and tore apart Utah's defense. I don't know how much you've seen of him, but as a guy that played the position, I always like to ask you, like, what's the eye test between the two? It is Barron's team. It is his job. But what do you make of the backup?
Yeah, at first glance, without going like super deep into the film, I saw I'm able to get in there and just operate the offense, which you see so many quarterbacks around college football. The second you go to the backup quarterback, it feels like the entire playbook shrinks and you're not able to get at everything. So I was impressed. I thought he operated it well. I heard someone use the term, steady the ship. Yeah, he steadied the ship, but it also felt like he was, fully driving the ship. They feel totally comfortable in what he can bring and seeing the success of him. And then also, you mentioned Lane Kiffin earlier. I think it's interesting what Kiffin did this offseason, and he did it last year too with Spencer Saunders as well, Jackson Dart's backup. But you go invest real NIL money in going and getting a backup quarterback because, as we all know, you're one injury away from that guy being the most important player on the team. And maybe there's something to be said about, hey, me investing in a backup quarterback, and it obviously has to be the right guy who's willing to sit on the bench or not be guaranteed a starting spot. But maybe that's a more important decision than investing those funds in your second linebacker or something. And it wouldn't surprise me especially if Ole Miss continues to contend in the SEC, if that's a decision where we see quarterbacks specifically, which are already hot commodities in the portal, be even more competitive in the portal cycle.
So it's a big game coming up this Saturday. Rice-Eccles Stadium, Arizona State rolls into town. ASU up to 21 in the AP. Started things off. There was not a consensus pick, certainly, to win this conference. They even took away our privileges as far as Big 12 preseason media poll because we were all so wrong last year. The teams we picked to win were at the bottom. The teams we picked at the bottom were at the top. But for a minute, it did feel like, based off of them winning the thing a year ago, even though they lose Cam Scatterbo, who both Utah and BYU fans know what a beast he was, and now with the Giants, again, not consensus, but I feel like if you had to pick a team that most people leaned into, it may have been ASU. They go to Starkville and lose, but maybe Mississippi State is a little bit better than we thought initially. They've got back-to-back conference pretty gutty wins in Waco at Baylor, then home against TCU. So what do you make of this game coming up Saturday night as Utah will take on Arizona State? The Utes right now are a 5.5-point favorite to win it at home.
Yeah, it feels like Arizona State's, finding their new identity at this point in the season, or have found it. The post, like having Cam Scatterbu as, your running back. He was the offense. I mean, yes, Sam Levitt was great, and a lot of people look at him as a high-level NFL prospect, but Cam Scatterbu is the engine that made the offense go. And I think, the month of September for ASU was figuring out the post-Cam Scatterbu life, where you still have a running back they like, and Raleek Brown, the former USC prize recruit, who he's a great running back, but a totally different skill set than what Cam Scatterbu was, and a different, offensive game plan you bring to the park. But now, given that ASU has had a couple of those gutsy wins, they've been battle-tested. I think they're truly giving Sam Levitt the keys to the car, and with Raleek Brown, their running back, and then Jordan Tyson, who I didn't see him as much last year. I saw, some of the college football playoff, highlights and clips and whatnot, but he's special, and they feature him in the passing attack. ASU's got weapons, and if you can slow down Sam Levitt's arm, obviously that's a recipe for ultimately beating the Sun Devils.
Tell me what you've seen from Devin Dampier so far. So Utah 4-1. We already kind of broke down the Tech game, where post-game, a lot of people discussed that Devin was dealing with a bit of an ankle thing. Against West Virginia, not a great team. He was awesome again. He's looked great when the competition hasn't been great. And the one good team they played, we didn't see Devin as dynamic as we have seen him in other scenarios. So what do you make through 5 games as far as what you've seen from Utah's quarterback?
Yeah, about, what I kind of hoped for, kind of expected. I feel like, I came on with you guys after the UCLA-Utah game, and my take was, man, he's impressive. If you're a Utah fan, and the combo of arms and his arm talent, and then what he can do with his legs is exactly what you hoped for. And then we also talked about my biggest concern being, I felt like the passing game and the concepts being called were pretty simple, right? It was very like cut the field in half. You're only looking at one side to make your reads. And given that he does have mobility, defenses as a result are not necessarily not going to be able to give him all the exotic coverages, because oftentimes you have to go man coverage versus that and put a spy on him because he can run, which makes the passing game even more straightforward. The reason I say that, though, is because when Utah doesn't have a clear-cut talent advantage, maybe they can get exposed if they don't have a wider array of passing concepts or creativity that they can get to. And can Dampier really process that and see through that? I think he can. I don't think that showed up necessarily in the Texas Tech game, and we'll see in this next month of the season. But he's a really good quarterback, and he's going to make every defensive coordinator fearful of what he can do, just given the combination of, again, his arm talent and legs. But the real test will be when teams pressure him, teams get after him, and maybe playing from behind as well, where you can't lean on teams in the run game.
One of the big talking points preseason involved the wide receiver room. Lost a transfer to USC right before the season started. Couple of good targets move on to try to make their way through pro football. And really what's turned out to be the case, Max, is Ryan Davis, who played with Devin at New Mexico, has simply either been his preferred target or he's the dude that just gets open. I'm not really sure which one it is, but he is by far, he's got 36 catches, which before last week was 6th in the country. I'll have to look at the up-to-date standings as we sit here now. As a guy, again, who played that position, is it just simply a matter of those two knowing each other because they played together a year ago that seems to have Devin look Ryan's way, or is it just as simple as that's the kid that gets open?
I'd have to guess probably the latter. I think that's one thing that sometimes gets over-exaggerated is, he's, feeding this one receiver because that's his go-to guy. The reality is, and any quarterback knows this, oftentimes the coverage, or the majority of the time, the coverage dictates where you're going with the football. So if the defense is rolling one way, I don't care if it's Joe, John, Tim, whoever at that receiver spot. Like, I have to go there because that's what the coverage is telling me to go. I do think there's something to be said about if there's familiarity and you're getting man concepts, where oftentimes versus man coverage, the quarterback can pick, if he's between two receivers, he can pick his favorite target or pick the better playmaker. And that's very much something that could be going on. And then also, if your coordinator is used to your receiver and your coordinator is used to your quarterback and there's familiarity there is very much something to be said about designing plays to, hey, more more often than not, this one receiver is likely going to be open in this concept versus defensive coverage, and it's probably a mix of all that, because obviously when there's a familiarity with the receiver in years past, that brings comfort both not only for the quarterback but the play caller as well, and I'm sure they're dialing them up.
All right, moving over to BYU. They played Friday night against West Virginia, and they handled them. I mean, if you didn't watch the game and you just looked at the score, you would say, okay, maybe West Virginia was a little bit more of a challenge than we thought. That wasn't the case. There were 2 red zone turnovers that allowed West Virginia very short fields, and they converted. And BYU was never in danger of losing that game. They went to Boulder a couple of weeks ago, and they were down early, but they came back, and they've passed every test that's been put to them. The question just is, how stiff have these tests been? It's not BYU's fault that Stanford is in a little bit of a rebuilding phase, but they rolled into Provo. BYU just undressed them. Portland State, to start things off, maybe a sneaky road trip to East Carolina, handled their business. Bear Bachmeier, this freshman quarterback, went 17 quarters without a turnover. Did throw his first pick of the season the other night, also lost a fumble. He is a big kid. He is built. And 351 yards through the air, that's his high through 5 games as BYU's quarterback. So just your thoughts on where we find ourselves with BYU as they travel to Arizona this weekend.
Yeah, and I thought he was efficient last week versus West Virginia, too. Yeah, that to me was the question, 2 weeks ago before the Colorado game is, does Bear Bachmeier have the ability to win you a game? And it felt like that first month of the season, yes, they were putting up good numbers, but it was, on the back of a lot of the run game, the physical nature of BYU, and the pass game flowed off of that. If you're going to win a conference title, your quarterback has to be able to stand in the pocket and win you a game with his right arm. And that's what's exciting for me, because I feel like he has grown in that area the past couple of weeks. I feel like the playbook has expanded. You saw the deep downfield shot that BYU opened with last game, and I'm sure that was part of the motivation. But, yeah, BYU is a team that if I had to play them, I would not want to play them later on in the year when this young quarterback has now, 6, 7, 8 starts under his belt. And I would imagine with every week that goes by, he gets more and more comfortable. The playbook expands around him. And, if we fast forward here in 2-3 weeks, I used to play for a coach that said by the halfway point of your true freshman year, you're no longer a true freshman. At that point, you have tons of experience, and, we got to start treating you like a more seasoned player there. And I bet we see that in his play. But BYU is going to go as far as Bear Bachmeier will take him. But right now, you got to like their chances top of the Big 12, again, right in that tier 1 of the Big 12.
Give me your thoughts on this Arizona challenge. BYU is a slight favorite. It opened up BYU minus 2.5. It's moved down. BYU is a 1.5-point favorite over Arizona. Arizona's only loss, it's so weird. This conference is just ridiculous because Arizona's only loss is at Iowa State. Iowa State just got by Cincinnati, and maybe Cincinnati's better than any of us expected. But Arizona does have a veteran quarterback that's been around a long, long time, and Noah Fafita. They're coming off a win over the Mike Gundy-less Oklahoma State squad. But BYU, Arizona coming up this weekend. What do you think?
Yeah, whenever it's an Arizona game, this is the old Pac-12 nature. I mean, I always look at what kickoff time it is in a late game, late time slot in the desert. That's sometimes a recipe for an upset for the Wildcats to sneak up on people, just hanging around the hotel for a long day, watching a bunch of other football, get the students back in the stands, and Arizona can come out firing. And you mentioned it with Noah Fafita. He's an interesting one for me because before last year, which is obviously a long time ago, I was thinking that Noah Fafita could be a top 10 quarterback in college football. It hasn't necessarily worked out that way, but he certainly has the talent where if he wakes up on the right side of the bed one day, they can put up 40 points on you. And they showed that last week. And I haven't had a chance to watch their game last week, but I know the storyline going into the Iowa State game 2 weeks ago was how much more improved the Arizona defense was. That didn't necessarily show through versus Rocco Beck and Iowa State. Showed through last week versus Oklahoma State. But if you compare Arizona with a quality defense, which historically is usually their weakness, that passing attack, I don't think Arizona's a team that you can sleep on at all.
All right, Max, before I say you loose, let me just ask you a macro question involving both Utah and BYU. I said this earlier. I don't think 2 conference losses will ultimately kill your chances to win the Big 12, but it might. And if you're Utah, you already have a tie-breaking loss against Texas Tech. And Texas Tech, as we already discussed, looks like they're going to have something to say about this thing at the end. And I would put Arizona State in that same category. So if Utah gets got on Saturday against ASU, it's not just 2 conference losses. It's 2 conference losses to Tier 1 teams potentially that you're going to be jockeying with at the end. So Saturday feels big. BYU has stayed clean so far. But from what you've seen with both Utah and BYU up to this point, do you still put both of them in the category of teams that you think can win the Big 12 when it's all said and done?
I do. Yeah, and BYU is probably the less controversial one there, but I still believe in what Utah can be for all the talking points that we've talked about over the past few weeks, offensive line wise, Dampier wise, and then just the DNA of what Whittingham has brought to the park. But yeah, two wins. I mean, or 2 losses. I think there's certainly a world where that still gets you into the conference title berth, and it just feels like, honestly, you could have that conversation with almost any of the conferences this year. I mean, it feels like, and I've had this take for a couple of years, but it's only a matter of time before a 3-loss team gets into the playoff, and it feels like this could be the year. I mean, the SEC is wide open. I think the Big Ten, if Penn State right now is unranked, that's a dang good unranked team. And then Big 12, we've obviously been talking about that for years. So it wouldn't surprise me if this is the year where, as you say, a lot of people get got, and it's going to be the finish line is going to be neck and neck when it's all said and done.
Max, thank you, my friend. I always appreciate the insight. Have an excellent week, and we'll get you back on soon, okay?
Appreciate it. Thanks, Spence.
All right, Max Brown, former USC quarterback, played college ball at Pitt as well. He's with our friends at ESPN now and does a lot of YouTube breakdowns. He just did one on Arch Manning. You can find all of his links to the work up on his Twitter page at MaxBrown4, and Brown is with an E, so give him a follow. All right, with IFA's Step 4, fall and winter lawn food, you'll get stronger roots now and an early green up next spring. It's the ultimate lawn owner power move. More at your local IFA or at IFA.coop. We go from one high-level quarterback to another. We'll catch a break and bring in Scott Mitchell coming up on the other side. We have another college quarterback, Blaine Fowler, on the show today, then Kurt Schmidt later on for a little RSL. Busy Monday show. Good to have you with us right here on ESPN 700. Going to let you hear from Coach Witt, addressed the media earlier today, as he does every Monday when there is a game. Of course, off last week, bye-week style for the Utes. The big one Saturday night, Arizona State is in town to take on Utah. Our next guest, you know him, you love him. You can hear him on the Down and Dirty. Scott Mitchell, happy Monday, sir. How are you?
Happy Monday to you, Spence. Man, I'm living the dream, just loving life. Crazy weekend of sports, and can't wait to talk about it.
It's good to be Scott Mitchell, as I always say. What'd you get into this weekend? A little golf, a little boating? What was the situation?
My kids were in town, and of course I'm down in St. George, and we did a lot of recreating. I'll just tell you that much. It was amazing. Yeah,
good,
really
good for
fun.
you. Good for you. Bye-week style. All right, let's see, Scott. What sort of dynamics can you share with us about what goes on behind closed doors during a bye week for Utah football? What do you think those boxes are they wanted checked?
I've been in bye weeks where everyone goes on vacation and just gets away from it to we totally revamped our entire offense and went on to set records. I've had it where you've been injured and you're just like, man, I'm so glad I can breathe here for a minute. There's always the kind of come to Jesus moments that you get an opportunity to have kind of that honest conversation. Where are we really? It's a great self-evaluation, great self-scouting time when you can look at your tendencies, and it really helps you kind of moving forward because like Utah's playing an extremely critical game this week, which they are really from here on out, but it's a chance to get back at Arizona State for the loss and sting of last year. They're the reigning champs. They're going to come in fired up and ready to play, and so a lot to play for. And having an ability to kind of maybe do some things, prepare for some things they haven't seen yet. I know they've kind of had a bye as well, but it's always good that you can work on some stuff. They got some new guys coming in. Playing, you've got some roles that you maybe want to expand on with maybe some of these defensive players like Lander Barton. Bye weeks can be very fruitful and very, as I'm describing, like busy almost.
So you and I have not spoken in the last little bit, so I do want to kind of touch on the Texas Tech game a little, Scott. A lot of people, and I believe this to be true, by the way, I think the best win that any team in the Big 12 has so far is what Tech did to Utah and Salt Lake. So they've earned, as the kids would say, their flowers. They dismantled Houston, and Houston, I thought, had a bit of an improved offense. But look, man, it's just undeniable that this money that's been infused into that program did breed a lot of talent, and money talks. That's just the deal. At this point, do you feel like Tech has separated themselves from the group to kind of be like considered the favorite, maybe the class team of the Big 12 so far?
Well, defensively, they are probably the best team in the conference, but Utah is not bad. I mean, they're actually quite good, and there's still a lot of teams that you really don't know if they're contenders or pretenders. I mean, BYU, they're 5-0, but you look at the teams that they beat. I mean, it's like no one. Their best win might be against West Virginia. So, it's not saying a lot. And you look at a team like Cincinnati who beats Iowa State last week, and you're going to kind of get a real picture of how things are over the next couple of weeks. Texas Tech still has some good games on their schedule. And you really, if you're Utah right now, I don't know that you're chasing Texas Tech. Like, you almost, they have one up on you because of the head-to-head. You almost just need to say, look, we don't have to be the best team. We just have to be one of the two best teams in the conference, and I believe that's very attainable for Utah because the teams that are ahead of them, Cincinnati, BYU, Arizona State, they play, and so they control kind of where they go as far as getting in the Big 12 championship. It's still, look, Devin Dampier was not very good in that game. They didn't throw the ball down the field. They didn't even try to throw the ball down the field in that game. And this last week against West Virginia, it was like, wow, I haven't seen this. I haven't seen this from Devin Dampier. He really hasn't run since the Wyoming game, and he really hasn't looked like that player who does run since that game. So maybe the bye week gets him kind of back in form because that form is so critical to how well he plays. But there's a lot of good in Devin's game and there's a lot that's improved. But he's got to be able to run, and he is so integral. I hate to say this to Utah winning this game, because he's just so good at keeping offenses on the field, and those long drives they have are a lot because he makes plays and he does it running as much as he does throwing, if not more.
Big 12 has proven to be exactly what we thought, and that is a conference with a lot of teams that feel like they're very close to each other. So Utah, Arizona State on Saturday, Scott, I don't think it's an elimination game per se, but it might be, right? So it wouldn't just be two conference losses. It would be two conference losses against peers that are probably going to have something to say about the thing at the end. So you would have the tiebreaker go to the other team with both Texas Tech and Arizona State. I'm not a hyperbolic radio host. I'm not a hot take guy, but is it hyperbolic to say that Saturday feels like a bit of an elimination game for Utah if they want to win the Big 12 this year?
I remember the first year, 8 years ago, that I started calling these games, and Utah lost its first two conference games. You're just like,
Yep.
There's no freaking way.
Yep.
You know, and they went. That was the first time they went to the Pac-12 championship game. So two losses is not necessarily out of the realm of things. Because of the way the conference is, that there's a lot of these teams that are in the mix are playing each other. Utah, as I said, gets to play. This next month of football is going to be crucial to where they end up in the conference. But again, maybe Texas Tech you just kind of throw away and just say they're going to win it. But you possibly could still have two losses and get into the conference championship, but you really don't want to think that way. You just want to think, man, we just need to take care of business every week and do our thing. But this is a huge game. It's the biggest game that they played. It's going to make a statement for Utah as to where it goes and really who they are. Because after that West Virginia game, because West Virginia just wasn't good, I'm like, I still don't know how good Utah is, because they really haven't. They haven't played anyone, and they played Texas Tech, and Devin Dampier was not good, and Jason Beck didn't call a good game, and so but I thought the defense played pretty good up until the end. So I don't know. I hope they're good. This week will tell us really where this Utah team is, if they're really serious, if they're really a serious contender, or not for the conference championship.
You referenced the play calling against Tech, and it was not Jason's finest day by his own admission. It was not Devin's finest day. I know they talked a lot about the ankle bothering him during the Tech game. But if we pan out, Scott, and just look at the macro viewpoint out through 5 games, what have you learned about Jason as a play caller?
Well, it's awesome. He's very coachable, is really what it is. And I think it's because you're honest about kind of where you are. And I think the whole team felt that way after the Texas Tech. I think they made the game too big. I think they got themselves so wrapped up in the game that they just executed poorly. They kind of, I don't want to say choked, but maybe they got the still elbow, as we say, and they just couldn't throw the ball with it. That's just a term, but they learned from it. And I just remember last week going, oh, wow, all these things that are there you didn't take advantage of last week, you now are taking advantage of this week. And I personally thought Devin Dampier had his best game throwing the football all year. And I think with Jason, he's a guy that's, he's willing to kind of think outside the box, to utilize and get creative with the talent that he has. And that kind of keeps you in the game. If you're just a person that just, this is my system and we're just going to try to out execute people all the time, I think it limits you. And he's been really creative, and he's been coachable, and I think he's really improved. I really want to see Utah learn how to finish a game, because all of the teams, Spence, are pretty evenly matched. Even Texas Tech, as good as they are, they're not like, oh my goodness, they're so much better than everyone else. It's that they learn how to finish games and finish people off, and that's where you win championships, when you learn how to do that. And I haven't seen that yet from Utah. And I believe this is the week where you need to see it, and hopefully you will see it. And that is just going to tell you a lot of where this team is.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, Texas Tech is third in the country in stop rate. They have one of the most impressive defenses in the country, and that Utah-Texas Tech game was a heavyweight fight through 3 quarters. You just have to play 4. I guess what I'd follow up there is when it comes to the reality of being able to infuse a program economically the way Cody Campbell and the other boosters with Tech have been able to do, have we seen enough data to say whether it's Phil Knight money in Oregon is awesome, whether it's oil money in Texas Tech looks great? If you don't have one of those boosters, if you don't have the ability to keep up economically, are you just in danger of being behind the 8 ball when it comes to just pure talent acquisition?
Well, you have the ability to go do it. It's not illegal.
No, it's not.
And I think players are realizing, hey, I don't have to be at a big-time program to go to the NFL and to succeed. And in a lot of ways, I'd rather be the number 1 at a Texas Tech than the 2 or 3 at Georgia or wherever else, or maybe be the number 1 guy at a smaller school or, at a school like, Syracuse that isn't really known as a power these days. And so it's not just Oregon. It's not just Texas Tech. It's Miami. You might say it's Florida State. You look at a team like Clemson, who hasn't embraced this, and they're kind of falling off of favor. You look at, Ohio State, even though they are, a juggernaut, they're still willing to go in and embrace that. I mean, you're seeing all these programs. They all fight for the best quarterback in the country every year. And the one you maybe could argue with, like, what the heck, did you spend your money on, Texas, And it really isn't so much about spending the money, but it's about spending the money on the right people in the right places. I mean, I said this last offseason, if you're Utah, I go out and I get me just a dominant pass rushing end, and that's where I start. And that's really where Texas Tech did it. They, up front, they have an impressive defensive line, and they're all bought. And they're all from different places, and they play amazingly well. And they set the tone for that whole defense. And so, you can win, and that kind of gives people hope. Now, the question is, how deep are those pockets, and, how long are you committed to this? I mean, look at Kansas, never thought of as a football power. They have someone throwing $300 million into their program, which is huge. I mean, that's just such a big game-changing deal right there. And I'm sure you'll see more of it, or however this thing shakes out. I don't know, but it's clearly. I was curious, and my eyes were definitely on Texas Tech this year, and they spent their money well. And so far, I believe they're getting a big return on what they've spent.
Yeah, to your point, and we can throw Penn State in there too. Penn State was reported to have really infused their program economically, and you referenced Texas. It's not just simply spending money. It's just like pro football. You've got a salary cap. You have to allocate money intelligently. And if you have a rookie quarterback like Seattle did with Russell Wilson, you can sign a bunch of awesome defensive players and pay your secondary a ton of money, and maybe that's a model to win a Super Bowl. But when it comes to going about allocating resources wisely, do you feel like there's an area, and look, we're only 5 games in. I'm not putting the cart in front of the horse here. There's plenty of football left. But is there an area, and you referenced defensive end, that you feel like Utah needs to upgrade?
Yeah, I mean, and it's nothing against the guy. I mean, John Henry Daly's having one of the most amazing seasons, of any. I mean, he's super impressive. And but it's just like, if you're really going to spend your money, and part of it, too, is like, I've said this before, where just go out one year and just break the bank, just spend and get you some shutdown corners, get you some stud wide receivers, get like a top tier quarterback. I mean, just really spend and what you do. And I think what's happened at Texas Tech, I think the fans are excited. I think the players are confident. they maybe play above their pay grade just because they go, man, we got the dudes here, like we can really win this, and so you kind of, it just kind of infuses and it builds on itself, and that was my theory. It's like, go out. I think BYU has kind of done that in basketball, where they just said, okay, we're going to go out and we're going to just spend crazy here, and kind of that build it, they will come type of thing, and you may attract some guys that would have no interest in going there, and all of a sudden you've kind of turned the corner on your program, and you change things. I mean, Oregon hasn't always been thought of as like this juggernaut in football, and they kind of have done that. Phil Knight just said, okay, I'm going to invest. I'm going to go all in on this. And then everyone goes, hey, it's really cool to go to Oregon. This is where you want to be. And the players, they play with confidence. Because they know that they have the players, and that just goes so far. It goes just so beyond just paying and getting good players. I mean, one of the best players Texas Tech got was a running back from USC, and he's injured. Where would they be with even more talent on a very talented team now?
Yeah, no, fair point. So we had Max Brown on last segment. He played quarterback for USC and Pitt. I want to ask you a question I asked him about Devin's preferred target, and we may have just overthought it because it's Ryan Davis, and it's not close with 36 catches, 6th in the country, at least as of last week. So the question I asked Max, Scott, that I want to pose to you, is it just a matter of these two knowing each other because they played together a year ago, or are we overthinking it and Ryan Davis is the wide receiver that just gets open?
Well, it's probably a little bit of both, but, it's certainly there's a confidence that knowing the system, right? And it's not their first year in the system. Pretty much everyone else, except for Nakiri Rogers, is not really familiar with the system. So, yeah, they have a huge advantage to start with. But it's also you develop a rapport with a guy, and it could just be anyone, and like, I mean, Devin has a pretty good rapport with his tight ends down on the goal line, so it's not it's not just a one-hit wonder that he's kind of gotten used to. So having that knowledge certainly puts you ahead of everything else. And then it's all of a sudden you start throwing to a guy and you start throwing to him in like critical situations, and then you start gaining confidence because as a quarterback you're like, I want this play to succeed. I want to know that this guy I'm throwing the ball to is going to catch it in a big moment. And I don't want to throw it to a guy that's going to drop the ball. I mean, the guy that was the most brutal about that was Dan Marino. Like, you drop a pass and you're not seeing a ball again. But when you get out there and you're relying on a guy, and it's so hard to get someone open to begin with, and then you drop the ball, you, as a quarterback, it turns you off. You're like, man, I don't really want to go there. But if you get a guy, it's like, oh, he's open. He catches the ball. And then when you kind of have that situation where I need a guy right here to make a play for me, in your mind, consciously and maybe even subconsciously, you go, Ryan Davis is my guy. And the coaches feed on that, and then they start calling more plays. But I think that the evolution for Ryan Davis, for me, and Devin Dampier is the accuracy last week with which Devin threw the ball to Ryan, where he could catch it and then make more yards after the catch. And that was something that was a little lacking in the past, at least on a consistent basis. And so he wasn't a possession, little slot receiver, a little short route. I mean, they were throwing the ball down the field, and he was hitting him in stride where he could make big plays. And that's all just that confidence and chemistry that you just develop by playing together in a game.
So we had Morgan on a couple weeks ago, Morgan Scally, and I asked him about the dynamic of the defensive players getting reps on offense and how that landed with him. And Morgan gave you the answer you would expect, which is we want to put our best playmakers out there in the spots that help us win games, which I get. But we didn't see as much against West Virginia. Lander was out there. They just didn't really throw it to him. But, of course, Rabbit Evans out for the year. We don't have an update on Nate Ritchie, but that didn't look good. Jackson had to leave the game with a little bit of an ankle issue as well. With the injuries piling up in the defensive backfield, do you think at this point maybe the sentiment is to keep Smith, Snowden as healthy as possible so maybe we don't see him as much on offense, or is it simply going to be a case-by-case, week-by-week scenario?
So I'll go back to Morgan in the beginning. Morgan is like the most competitive human ever invented. Like, he's fiercely competitive, and he doesn't want his guys on offense. If he was being selfish, if he was being completely candid, he goes, "Look, I want my guys." Like, they steal guys from the offense and put them on defense, and for him to go the other direction, or at least they're on loan now. You know, it's not like they're there permanently. I guarantee it's hard for him. But he's a Utah man. He's a team guy, and he's like, whatever it takes for us to win. And if we're short on talent and explosiveness, then yes, I'm willing to do that. The linebacker position was pretty and is pretty deep. The corner nickel safety spot, not so much now. And so I think it was always a plan of where the need was. Daniel Bray kind of started to show something last week against West Virginia, some explosion, some speed. He kind of does a lot of similar things that you might see with Smith, Snowden. So maybe he takes on a bigger role, and you don't have to have Smith in the game. I'd love to see Lander Barton in the game. I'd love to see him run the routes down the field and throw the ball to him. I just know that it's kind of limited no matter what you can do with guys, because you just don't have that much time to practice with them during the week. Now, with this bye week, you might see some of that expand, or you might see, okay, we can't have Smith, so he's out. So who's, does Daniel Bray get more time? Do we put Lander over there? Or do we like what we have, and maybe some guys are emerging that maybe we don't need it as much? But I think no matter what, I just think it's always a situation wherever the team needs help is where they're going to put guys.
Yeah, and as it should be. Just kind of wonder if it changes with the injuries, and Smith is just so important on defense. But
Probably.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, probably,
yeah.
I would think so. I mean, I'm not a rocket science. I didn't even stay at a Holiday Inn Express last night, but I'm smart enough to know that if you got guys down, I kind of felt like that was going to happen anyways with Smith Snowden. I kind of like, okay, these guys are down. He's just kind of a little bit of a Swiss Army knife in the secondary, where he was playing corner, he was playing nickel. I don't know if he's stout enough to play the safety spot, but maybe he is. Who knows? And he's certainly a guy that's well-rounded, and he's a playmaker. He makes things happen.
We'll move over here. On multiple occasions, Witt himself have bemoaned a little bit the fact that the team seems to be missing tackles. And Sam Levitt is coming into town on Saturday night. Then the week after that, it's Bear Bachmeier. And your point about BYU is well taken. They have passed every test that's been put to them. How difficult have the tests been? I don't think we have a full picture. But Bear can go, and he's a big kid, and he likes to get out of the pocket and make plays. Sam does too. How do we clean this up? Because you're not going to be able to win a lot of football games with these dual-threat quarterbacks rolling into town, or who you're facing if you're not just tackling the way that Utah football typically does.
Yeah, and Sam Levitt this week is a guy that can throw the ball, and he's got a wide receiver, Jordan Tyson, that's might be a top 10 pick in the draft. But Sam will run it, and in like those critical situations, a lot like how Cam Rising used to do it, a lot like Devin Dampier, maybe not as nifty a runner as Devin, but he's very capable, very athletic. And it almost feels like he's leaning more to running in critical situations this year than maybe he has in the past. And he's the second leading rusher on the team, so he's definitely hard out. And tackling is a big deal. And for me, it's about tackling late in the game, and that's where a lot. It showed up against Texas Tech. It actually showed up last week against West Virginia, where they were, and I understand, it's the game's pretty much in hand. I mean, West Virginia was not in that game from the opening kickoff, so it's a little bit of a garbage time, but still. And part of it is that Utah, I don't think, has been as physical or live as they have been in the past, and that was kind of a hallmark of Coach Whittingham. But under the new rules, he's had to change that, and these are kind of one of the byproducts of the change in their tempo in the NFL it's different. These guys are so trained, like they're hired assassin tacklers. Like they just don't miss you in the NFL. When they hit you, it hurts too. But in college, you're still trying to learn how to do it. You're still trying to figure it out, do it live, and do it in a game, and you need practice at it. And unfortunately, they don't get it, and so they just say we'd rather have more guys healthy than a lot of guys injured and making more tackles. Can they get better at it? Sure. Is it going to be an issue? Probably to some extent. Maybe they get to a point in the season where they kind of get comfortable with it, but they're going to miss tackles. It's just the way it is.
All right, let's bottom line this, Scott. Right now, Utah's in the top 20 in both scoring offense and scoring defense. You broke down what you've seen from Devin so far, and they're 4-1. Everything is still there for this team to play for. Nothing has been lost at all, even though there's already been a loss in conference. What do you feel like about Utah, what they're good at, and then on the other side, what are you still hoping to learn?
Well, I'll tell you what I love is that if you're going to lose the game, it's better to lose it early on in the year, and because there's just more opportunity to kind of figure out where you are and make up ground, and I think it was a huge motivator for this team, and I think they're there. I think Utah is going to be in every single game they're in the rest of the year. I know that they're going to play good defense. I know that. One of the things that just continues to be consistent is when they get in the red zone, they score, and that's been huge this year. And part of it is the accuracy of Devin Dampier throwing and the creativity. There are 5 or 6 throws that I can think of throughout the first 5 games that I've seen him make throws that are very accurate and out of the box, and they just and he kind of has a knack and a feel for that, and that's powerful, where you can locate a ball accurately, so it's not a dangerous situation, and all of them have resulted in touchdowns, and it's very impressive. So this team, they get in the red zone and they're going to score. The defense, I think, is probably from top to bottom they're a defense that's going to keep them in every game that they're in. They're not going to get blown out of any game. I thought they did an excellent job against Texas Tech in the game they played here in Salt Lake City, and had the quarterback not gotten injured, I'm not sure Texas Tech wins that game. But I like this team. I like where they are. I like that they're fired up. I like that they learn from their mistakes. They're a team that's constantly improving and getting better every week. And so Utah's a team that people aren't giving. They're kind of just lurking, and I think in everyone's mind they just felt like that Texas Tech loss was such a terrible thing. And that's good because it's kind of out of sight, out of mind, and Utah can kind of do its little thing out in anonymity, and all of a sudden at the end of the season go, wait, where did Utah come from? They're really in that position right now, and their destiny, I believe, is in their hands. But there's something there, and they have a quarterback. If he's healthy, he can make things happen for them, and they got a defense that can keep them in games.
All right, before I set you loose, Sam Levitt, of course, Arizona State loses Cam Scatterbo. They bring in the Raleek Brown kid, who's averaging almost 7 per. He's got 77 carries and over 500 yards. Then Jordan Tyson, as you referenced, 39 catches already, 7 touchdowns already. So a 1-2-3 punch at skill position that probably is as good as we're going to see in conference play. How does Utah get this done? Just give me 2-3 keys to this game on Saturday night, Scott.
Well, it's always about stopping the run, and that includes the quarterback, and it's really about minimizing, the big plays. You just, the receiver probably is going to get some plays on you, but you can't give up the big plays, and then you got to know the quarterback is going to keep the ball in his hands on those critical situations. So you really got to key into the quarterback and not let him get loose. And it's all about rush lanes. It's all about just keeping an eye on the quarterback and and containing them. And Texas Tech, I mean, it was the same situation, similar quarterbacks, and I thought Utah did an amazing job. A very similar game plan to Texas Tech as far as containing the quarterback. But yeah, they just can't run the football, and you got to contain the quarterback.
All right, my guy, appreciate the time. Have a great week and enjoy that late night call on Saturday night, okay?
All right, look forward to it. Thanks.
All right, Scott Mitchell. You'll hear him on our broadcast with Bill Riley and Stevenson Sylvester, an 8:15 kickoff on Saturday nights. Porter will start pregame coverage just after 4 o'clock. Do you have a tease for us? Do we know who's going to be on the pregame show coming up on Saturday?
Our guy T. Riley will be joining me.
Okay.
I think for most of it. May have some other guys stopping by, but that's the gist.
Will Trevor be wearing a fur coat
Probably.
and no shirt?
Probably. It's going to be, well, I don't know. We'll have to check the forecast.
It's going to be cold. I have a tea time Saturday and Sunday, and I'm nervous.
You should be good.
I don't know,
Take
man.
a layer.
Oh, yeah, you got to dress warm.
Maybe walk.
No. Come on, man. What are we doing here? I do love some fall golf, but the moment the weather turns and I realize that I'm in for 3 months of not swinging a golf club, I get visibly depressed.
Luckily, you have that membership to the indoor place.
I don't have a membership, but I do have the ability to go there. I'm forgetting what it's called. It's right downtown.
There's a few of them. The one that sponsors us will get a shout-out.
If you own a simulator, contact our sales staff.
There's one here at Gallivan. There's the one down here that we used to work with a little bit.
Do we have a phone number we can give out? If any simulator owners are listening, they can call in and sponsor the show and let me golf on their simulator for free all winter.
Just hit our website because there's a sales link there.
Yeah, I got ESPN700sports.com. But you better hurry because we're getting there. It's almost time.
Yeah, it is simulator time.
All right, we will catch.
I'm not watching it on TV, though.
No. Oh, the Golf League, is that what they call it? That unbelievable name they came up with?
An insane to have Tiger Woods specific golf thing and not have me watch is like a phenomenal upset. So they did it somehow.
And you know what's wild is it pulls ratings.
Okay.
People watch it. I don't get it, but that's where golf has had this like sudden surge of interest. Mm-hmm. The Ryder Cup was outdrawing NFL games.
It was fun.
It's wild to consider.
The first time I tuned in, and maybe it got better, maybe they improved a little bit, and I'm sure it's a continuous thing. Technology will continue to get better. The first time I watched that indoor golf league, Tiger hit a shot, and it like hit the screen in the middle, and then you could tell that the computer glitched and like zipped it out into the water, and they just kind of like, that's it.
Yep.
They're like, that's not how it works.
Yeah,
so
indeed.
It kind of turned me off.
Anyway, now that it is fall, it's time for IFA's Step 4. IFA's Step 4 Fall and Winter Lawn Food. You'll get stronger roots now and an early green up next spring. It's the ultimate lawn owner power move. More at your local IFA or at IFA.coop. We will catch a quick break. But coming up on the other side, we'll let you hear from Coach Witt, who addressed the media earlier today, as he does every Monday during the game week. Blaine Fowler stops by in the 4 o'clock hour. So does Kurt Schmidt. We will launch into the 5 o'clock hour, then say goodnight for Monday Night Football. It's the Chiefs and the Jags. And you can hear it right here on ESPN 700. Got our buddy Blaine Fowler joining the show today, former BYU quarterback, and now with BYU TV. We'll do some Big 12 football, his thoughts on both Utah and BYU, maybe do a little college hoops as we're right around the corner for getting that going. Kurt Schmidt, sporting director for RSL, will join us. It was a gut check for Real Salt Lake over the weekend. They passed the test, beating Colorado 1-0, as they say, kids' soccer term. So stay tuned for that. I want to let you know the tickets go on sale October 8th for Youngblood. Is that who this is? Young spelled Y-U-N-G, Blood spelled B-L-U-D. Who's this guy?
That's what it says. Got to be honest with you, not familiar.
No Youngblood knowledge, huh?
It'll surprise you. No young blood.
Well,
Don't reach young blood.
I don't even know what that means.
I just feel like that's like a term for like completely different from EDM DJ music. That's like an old man calling a young man on the basketball court young blood.
Gotcha.
I don't know about the concert space.
Don't think that's applicable in this scenario, but I understand that is the same.
I think this is like a Dave Fox artist.
Well, anyway, for all of you young blood fans out there, tickets on sale October 8th at the UCCU Center, May 13th, 2026. It's an early sale for next season. We want to send you with a +1 to the concert. Doing a great job of selling this. Text in your favorite Youngblood song.
There we go.
877-353-0700. Tickets go on sale on October the 8th. Shout out Youngblood.
We'll bring Dave Fox in with the winner's favorite Youngblood song next time we have him on.
I'm convinced that Dave just, before he jumps on the
There's
show,
no way.
he texts his daughters. He's like, give me a cool hip song.
There's no way he
so I
listens to
sound
that
cool
music.
to the radio listener. There's no way Dave listens to EDM.
Then again, like he sends me selfies like on a paddle board sometimes. That's Dave.
Yeah.
Maybe he is a 60-some-year-old sports host at face value. 20-year-old girl at heart.
He does have copious amounts of time on his hands.
Yeah, that's fair.
As I've referenced, I called him a couple of weeks ago and asked him what he was doing. He literally said, not much, waiting for the cleaning ladies to show up, and then I might go get lunch. I'm like, you're an adult. You're a grown-up. How do you make your way through the world this way?
I love it.
Good to be Dave Fox. All right, as we do every Monday, if you missed it from earlier, we're going to bring you Coach Witt. A little bit of sound issues. He was talking, as we start this thing, he's talking about Star Lotulelei and Nate Orchard being inducted into the Utah Athletics Hall of Fame as part of the class of 2025.
Proud of those guys. Two great players for us. Both had outstanding NFL careers, and just can't say enough good things about what they meant to the program and how they've given back and just been great ambassadors for us. And so really appreciate what those guys have done for the program and mean to us, and we congratulate them. Let's see, it's been a while. West Virginia, last week. Really proud of the way our guys bounced back. No sign of a hangover or they came out and played exceptional from the start and finished the game like we're supposed to, and had some really good performances. Offense got back on track, which was great to see. Defense was rock solid up until we took out all the starters midway through the fourth or so. We gave up a few things after that point, but the starters did a great job. Special teams were solid. Liked the way our place kicker, Dylan Curtis, struck the ball, kickoffs, place kicks. So a lot of good things in that game. Thought we handled the road trip well. We went out a day early. When you travel 2 time zones and have a game on Saturday that's not a night game, it's kind of our formula for when we go out. If it would have been a night game, we would have gone out Friday as usual. But that's how we manage the East Coast trips. So Arizona back at Rice Eccles this week, Arizona State, excuse me, and night game at Rice Eccles. It's one of the best environments in the country at night, anytime for that matter, but especially at night. And Sun Devils are playing good football. they've got two really outstanding players. Zero, the receiver, leading the conference in receiving, and number 3, the running back, is leading the conference in rushing. So those are really the two catalysts for their offense. In addition to the quarterback. Quarterback is dangerous, especially when he runs the football. He's done so much damage to teams this year, making big plays with his legs, and that's something that we got to try to keep in check if we can. Averaging about 4.25, 425 a game total low, very balanced, about 215 rushing and about 210 throwing, so a balanced attack. Let's see, they're primarily a 12 team, a lot of 2 tight end personnel groups. That's probably about 60%, 70% of what they do, and then the rest of it is 11 personnel. Defense, very athletic and very fundamentally and technique sound. They're really good with their techniques and fundamentals, not overly elaborate schemes, but just solid defense, and they got good athletes. So that's where we're at. Questions?
I got Justin.
Okay. There's Justin.
Yeah. Do you have any plans to redshirt Bert Ficklin or have him as QB2 the rest of the year? Is reaching his limit to declare his redshirt?
Good question. We're very pleased with what Bird's done. I can tell you that much right now. I would say that there is not a concerted effort right now to redshirt Bird. If we're going to play him, if he's needed, obviously, and then any experience that we can get him. And so I think the road we've been going down is the road we'll continue to go down. And like I said, he's really made the most of his snaps and has looked very poised and very in control when he's been out there. For a true freshman, he's seems to be very mature and handles his business very well.
Kyle, you came out banged up a little bit against West Virginia. Do you expect any of those to be season-ending injuries?
Good question. I was going to address that. I should have addressed that in my opening statements. None of those injuries were season-ending, and so just going forward, you'll just check the what do we call it, availability report on, I think it comes out Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and maybe even Saturday. There's a lot of them. So anyway, check those, and that'll tell you the status. But no, fortunately, not season ending, but, we'll see who we have available this week and who we don't.
If you have to miss extended time, who kind of moves into that starting safety spot?
Well, we've got Teo Johnson obviously playing the one safety, and then, we have Nate Tillman, who came in and did some, he's another true freshman, played well in his snaps, did make a few errors on last Saturday, but did some good things. Jackson Benny also has experience at safety. In fact, that's where he spent most of his time up until this year when we moved him to nickel. And so we have some options there. Also have a couple corners. We got some corners that are good size. Might look at moving one of those guys inside and seeing how he does this week. And probably be the Caldwell kid if we go that direction.
Kyle, last year, Scatterby had a pretty significant game against you guys.
Against everybody. And he's doing it now with the Giants. He's doing a good job.
Do they kind of run the same thing, or because they have a guy like Jordan Tyson, who's one of the best receivers in the country, do you see them throwing the ball a little bit more?
Yeah, they're more balanced and not leaning quite as much on the run game, although, like I said, the runner is leading the league in rushing, and so they do make sure that they, give a good dose of the run game, But Scatterbo, he was a guy that did us in last year, and really good football player. But they still have a real, they're making an effort to run the football and make sure that that's a big part of what they do.
Arizona State's been really good in one-score games last season.
Yeah, they have.
What do you attribute that to?
Just making plays when they need to be made. They've been in some tight games this year, although they lost the Mississippi State game. That was a one-score game, but they have done a good job of pulling those games out and being on the winning end of those. And just all I can say is that when the time comes at the end of the game and things get tough, they make plays. Yes, you old ASU Sun Devil.
Arizona at the start, I'll overlook that.
It was, tomatoes.
Going into the bye week, you said you were going to practice tackling. What does that mean as far as how you actually go about that?
It means we practice tackling. We get a guy and we tackle him. What's that?
It's not technique or anything. It's just simply tackling.
Well, we coach the technique as we're doing the tackling drills, and it's not good on good. We have our scout guys, and so it's the defense. And in retrospect, we actually tackled really well. We only missed 10 tackles in the West Virginia game. They were magnified because they were in space and led to a lot of yards after contact. So I felt better about that than I did right after the game. But to answer your question, yeah, you get tackling drills with your scout guys and your starting defense and tackle guys. You absolutely critique it and film it and pay attention to the fundamentals and technique of your tackling. Yeah.
Coach Dillingham is going into his third year with Arizona State. From afar, what have you been impressed with most with what he's done there?
How he stayed the course, and because he had some rough spots the first year, things didn't go real well. I think that was the year we beat him 50-something, to not very much his first year, and he also had a few other rough games that year. But I've talked to him a few times, and he's we've conversed, and he's picked my brain a little bit, and just said, hey, if you believe in what you're doing, keep doing it. Don't question yourself. Don't panic. Just keep doing it. He's been doing it, and you can see the progress they've made. So he's stayed the course, I guess, is the best way I can term what he's done.
Kyle, in the last 2 years since entering the Big 12, you guys are 0-5 at Rice-Eccles Stadium. Does that put any emphasis going?
Say that again. The last 2 years.
Last 2 years, you guys are 0-5 in conference play at
Rice-Eccles. That sucks. I didn't know. I wasn't aware of that. I probably should have been, but okay.
Does that put any emphasis on this weekend's game?
Well, it hadn't. It might now, but I didn't realize that. Like I said, honestly, didn't go back. I mean, you lose and you're upset and you're mad. I guess you could delve into it further, but that's a trend we hope to break this week. How about that? So.
Versus West Virginia, you guys had your most passing yards in a single game. Is that something that you hope to continue as you guys head down the stretch? I feel like with pushing the ball downfield through the air a lot more.
Well, we certainly would like to keep pushing the ball downfield. And really, the word you're looking for in the throw game is efficiency. We don't need to throw for 300 and something yards a game, and we need to be efficient when we do throw it. And we were very efficient against West Virginia, and part of that efficiency comes from being able to get chunk yardage down the field.
Dalen Bentley obviously has emerged as one of the top targets. What's kind of changed in his game from last season?
He's been able to stay healthy first and foremost. He's been with us 3 years now, going third year, and that's the thing that has held him back in the past is just not able to stay on the field. Knock on wood, this year he's been able to stay healthy and be out there, and he's turned into the player that we hoped he would when we recruited him, and he's I think one of the better tight ends in the Big 12 right now.
Ryan Davis is also a big target for you guys. We've been asking you all season long which wide receivers are going to step up. Meanwhile, he just catches everything thrown to him. What do you see from him? Are you comfortable with him being kind of your main target guy?
Yeah, exactly that. He's dependable. He's reliable, which is, I guess, redundant. But he's got exceptional hands. He runs exceptional routes. And I use the term crafty, I think was the term I used last time we talked about Ryan, where he's not necessarily the biggest guy, the fastest guy, any of that stuff, but he's so good at what he does. He's got such a great feel and just natural instincts for finding open space, sitting down in those areas, and also his rapport with Devin. They obviously have a leg up on the other. He has a leg up on the other receivers in the room because of that. They were a good combination last year, and that's just carried over into this year. So that's a big part of it too, is their familiarity with each other.
Outside of rest and recovery, it feels like bye weeks are an important time for coaching staff to do a self-evaluation. As you delve into the tapes, where do you feel like you can make adjustments and make big improvements moving forward?
Well, I think we're just looking at position by position. I think our offensive line has really played well this year so far. It hasn't been every single game, but we've overall, when you look at the body of work, I think they've done a good job. I think the running backs have made the most of their carry, especially Wayshawn. He's averaging good yards per carry average. I think it's over 6 yards a carry. They're close to it. Tight ends have been productive, really. Talking about Dallin, Receivers, as we mentioned, more chunk yardage would be in order, but I think we're making progress there. Defensive front has been solid. John Henry Daly's been a big plus for us. He's still up there in the nation leaders in sacks, and I think he's first in the conference in caused fumbles and creating a lot of havoc for us. Linebackers have been outstanding as well. John O'Hall is just what we hoped he would be when we moved him to safety a little over a year ago. Lander Barton is playing his best football as a Ute. Secondary, I don't think the secondary has been really tested. I think there's bigger tests down the road for our secondary, and so we'll see how we continue to. And then with Nate, if he's, depending on how long he's out, how that secondary can perform. Special teams, so-so, some good, some bad, but that's kind of the short version right there.
Coach, one of the
Do you really believe Witt didn't know 0-5 at home in Big 12 play? You think that was the first time he heard that?
The Baylor thing was weird because I also was kind of taken back by it. I was like, wait, because that stuck out, right? The Baylor game that they did win. I don't know. He
Such
just
a detail-orientated guy.
He is, but it is like details that I think are, I guess, material, if that makes sense. I'm sure it's definitely bulletin board material now that it's front of mind, but yeah, I don't know.
Well, we'll see if Utah can break that streak. They are a 5.5-point favorite over ASU. All right, 2 hours down, 2 hours to go. Your 4 o'clock hour is Blaine Fowler and Kurt Schmidt. Getting to the 5 o'clock hour of the program, then we'll say goodnight. In time for Monday Night Football, it is the Chiefs and the Jags tonight, so it should be a good one. Kansas City is favored by 3.5 on the road. A lot to do rest of the way on a Monday show. Keep it right here on ESPN 700. We got Monday Night Football on the station tonight. The Kansas City Chiefs are in Jacksonville to take on the Jaguars. KC is a 3.5-point favorite. Apparently, Xavier Worthy's ankle swelled up on the flight, and he's questionable to play. But should be a good one. That'll come your way when we say goodnight at 6 o'clock. But to start out the 4 o'clock hour, good friend of the show. It's been too long. Former BYU quarterback, now with our friends at BYU TV. Blaine Fowler, back on the drive. Blaine, happy Monday, buddy. How we been?
Good, Spencer. How's everything with you, man?
We're good. We're still trying to figure out the landscape of this college football market and conference, quite frankly. Let's start with you guys down that way, about 40 miles down south. The fact of the matter is BYU has passed every test, Blaine, that's been put to them. The question just is, how tough have those tests been, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, I think that is the question. And we knew as this season started that the lineup would get gradually better each game. And I think when everybody thought Jake Retzlaff was coming back, in our minds we're going, oh, it's too bad that the preseason schedule's not a little tougher because with Retzlaff, you can make a lot more noise early, and everybody had him preseason ranked in the top 12. Retzlaff goes, and then all of a sudden you find out you're going to start a freshman quarterback, and then I look at the schedule and I go, hey, this schedule is perfect for a freshman quarterback, right? My whole mentality changed about this sets up perfectly. It's almost like each game is a little bit different challenge and gets a little bit tougher. Maybe with the exception of West Virginia and Colorado are similar in how good they are, but they do things very differently. Colorado's like a spread kind of throw it around team, but they both have quarterback run game, and West Virginia's a big physical team that's not real skilled offensively. But anyhow, I feel like up to this point, if you were going to script and put together the ideal schedule for a team that's very good defensively, and I believe that regardless of who they've played, and has a brand new quarterback that you're trying to teach as you go along, it couldn't have been done better. And even though we know it was done by accident, right? It's worked out perfect for them, and I feel like he has made tremendous progress. I'm talking about Bear Bachmeier, and has taken a step forward in each game so far. And I think Arizona's a step up. Obviously, they're much better than West Virginia and Colorado, and especially they're solid defensively, and they've got a really good quarterback in Fafita. So this is the next step. I do think that BYU matches up well with Arizona. So just the next step. And then it gets really, really tough the next week. But you would hope by the time you get to Game 7 that Bear Bachmeier, and I believe this is true, will be playing more like a sophomore. I feel like he already is playing like a sophomore right now, not playing like a freshman anymore.
I do too, and I wanted to, when I saw you on the rundown, I was excited because I wanted to get your read on this to see if there's anything here. And, obviously A-Rod, good friend, both on the show and then just off air, and that's my guy. And I noticed, Blaine, pretty early on, after it was made official, the news came down that Bear was transferring to BYU. A-Rod wanted him out of high school, right? And so there was some familiarity there. But as I started to listen to A-Rod's kind of media after practice, I felt like he was tipping his hand a little bit when it came to like how effusive he was with his praise. Now, part of me wondered, like, is he trying to make a new player feel comfortable? Is he trying to coddle a freshman a little bit? But the other part of me is like, no, I think Aaron likes him a lot. And I didn't really change my calculation on what I thought BYU could be this year with the Retzlaff stuff because I thought they won a lot of games last year, despite his play, actually. He made some big plays in big moments, and I'm not cracking on the kid. But to your point, we know what the defense is. LJ's awesome. There are weapons that really have surrounded Bear with veteran players that have allowed him to, I think, to your point, really grow over the first 5 games. But at what point did you start to notice the way Aaron was talking about Bear, and at what point did you believe, wait a second, he's actually going to win this job?
It was 9 days into camp, and I was, if I go over, I stick around, and A-Rod's just great to me. He always just says, hey, dude, I'm not going to treat you like a media person because you never tweet anything from practice and you kind of keep it confidential. If you want to come to quarterback meetings, just come. Because they run the same offense. Remember, Aaron played in the same offense I played in. And what he runs today is a few evolutions away from exactly what we ran. They use different terminology, but the concepts are what Doug Scoville and Norm Chow and Mike Holmgren and Andy Reid, like it's it's the same concepts the Chiefs run today that the Andy runs that they learned. And I think the origins are with Doug Scoville. So he knows I know exactly what he's trying to accomplish. So he's always really open with me and always says, what do you think about this? Hey, did you see us run this play? What did you think? How do you read that? So we have those conversations, and I love that he's just transparent with me. I loved being able to have those conversations with him, and I keep them mostly private, but this I can say, in public, and that is 9 practices in. This is like, I don't know, 4 or 5 days before they made the announcement. He says to me, okay, this kid is crazy smart. He says, I've never dealt with a kid that can pick things up the way he does. I tell him one time, and he's got it. And I quiz him on it the next day, and he can draw it up on. He says he is crazy, crazy smart, but not just head smart. I take him out on the field, then he executes what he knows in his head. He said we've never had somebody like that this early, and he said 9 days in, he is equal to or surpassed the 2 guys that have been in this program for a year and a half in every aspect. Mastery of the offense, decision-making in the offense, taking care of the football, how many packages he's able to execute. He goes, he's kind of leaving me no chance. I don't know, no choice. I was thinking this kid's going to have to be so good to play as a freshman because I got guys that have experience. But he has made such remarkable progress in 9 days of camp that I'm going to put him in this whole next week with the ones, and he's either going to fall on his face under the pressure, or he's going to thrive and he's going to be our guy. And so then I watched, that whole next week, and he didn't cave. He just kept executing the offense. He kept completing balls. He kept throwing balls away he was supposed to throw away. He didn't force the ball into coverage. He didn't turn the ball over. That week where he put the pressure on him, he didn't have a single turnover. So then at the end of that week, he's like, yeah, he's got to be the guy. And which is interesting because it wasn't because Trayson or McKay weren't good. I think all along, A-Rod felt like we were okay. He's like, hey, we're okay. We can win a lot of games with these guys. They have experience. They're skilled. McKay can run all over the place. Trayson throws a great ball. He's got a good concept of the game. It was the freshman hooked the job from them, that's a way better thing than to default to a freshman because nobody else is playing well. When the other 2 are playing decent and the freshman just takes it, that's a special freshman, and that's who this kid is. And then he gets out on the field through 5 games, and he hasn't done anything to change my opinion of that after that 9th practice and then that next week of practice. He just keeps getting better. He is a remarkable young player, especially with the mental aspects of the game. It really is remarkable.
And he also is poised and doesn't get rattled for a kid that young. Because the other, I guess, concern would be with so many what I'll refer to as veteran players around him trying to, Chase wants to put tape out there to go to the NFL. LJ, same thing. The concern must have been, okay, if you're starting a freshman, are you doing the other players a disservice because you feel like maybe you're trying to build with him? But it wasn't. And the other thing I kept saying, Blaine, if everything's equal, go with the kid because he's younger, right, and let him grow. But what has become clear, as you just kind of outlined, is this decision was only made because he's the best guy for the job right now, which is a testament just to his maturity at that age.
But you've hit it exactly right, Spencer. That's exactly right. It wasn't they're all the same. Let's just go learn with them. He's going to make a bunch of mistakes. I think Aaron actually felt strongly, this kid just gives us the best chance to win. And then he said to me, and we're not letting anybody try to tackle him out here. Wait till you see this kid run. He goes, he's not running away from people like Avery Johnson at Kansas State or even, there's multiple quarterbacks in this league that can just run around and make you miss and do all. He goes, no, he's different. Think Tim Tebow kind of guy. Only he's way more accurate thrower than Tim Tebow. I'm like, okay, I can't wait to see this. And I'm not saying he's Tim Tebow running the ball, but when he gets going downhill, he's hard to bring down. He's physical. He's got this big lower body, and he's strong. And I do think there's sometimes he needs to learn to get down because at this level you get smacked around a little bit. But it's almost like he enjoys getting hit a little. And you mentioned another thing about him that that I saw this last week. Maybe really, I think he showed it last week. Maybe the best so far this season. And so West Virginia did a couple of things that caught him off guard. I don't know if you remember the play where they're like on their own 5-yard line, and Aaron called an open option play to pitch the ball, and it's the kind of play where you count numbers up, and if you come up and you're outmanned on that open side, that weak side, the quarterback checks out of it. So first of all, Aaron's calling a play which on his own 5-yard line where he's trusting the freshman quarterback to get out of it if he's outmanned, right? That tells you a lot right there with what Aaron feels right. But at the very last second, as he's calling the cadence, the strong safety comes up last second and blitz off the edge. So now, if that strong safety had lined up on the edge, he probably would have checked out of it. But this is last second. Put him in a really bad position. He comes down the line of scrimmage. He pitches it. The strong safety gets a hand on it. Turnover inside the 5 results in just 2 plays, a touchdown for West Virginia. So it's a terminal turnover. Like, it results in 7 points for the other team, right? Now I thought, okay, that I don't know if a senior quarterback catches that. Probably. I think if you got Jim or Steve, that guy shows late. They stop and check. You know, even if you're into your cadence, you can go, hey, check, right? And you can say check, and then you run something else, right? So maybe a senior quarterback like Steve or Jim or Robbie or somebody like that, or Steve Sarkisian as a senior would have checked out of that. So I'm not blaming him. It's just like this learning opportunity. But my question was, how does he respond to this? Like, he just turned the ball over. It resulted in a score for the other team. Does he just come out and play? Does he get cautious? And I don't know if you remember, but the next drive, he drove the team the full length of the field, and this just methodical drive, completed balls, ran the football, managed the team, and they score, and they matched the score. And I thought, oh, wow, okay. Like, that's adversity. That's a chance for you to lose a little bit of confidence. And I didn't feel a drop-off at all on the next drive. And then he threw his first pick of the season on an inside screen. All these are learning opportunities. And the linebacker did a great job. Actually, you can blame a little bit on the offensive line. You let the defensive line, you block them for a 1 or a 2 count, and you let them go. But the backers, you have to stay on. And the backer walked up to the line of scrimmage, and so the offensive line thought, hey, we can just let him go too. Well, you don't. You need to stay on. So a blocking error. He didn't read in front of the play, and so he went and he threw it anyhow. That backer picked the ball off. And that was deep in their own territory too. And guess what? They scored again on that. I can't remember if they kicked a field goal or a touchdown. Same thing happened. Next drive, he takes them and he engineers a drive all the way down the field, and they score again. So the first one, I'm not sure if that's just a young mistake or if anybody would make that mistake. I would have made that mistake as a junior probably, right? The second one's a tough read for anybody, and a missed assignment. Didn't impact him at all that I could see. Just kept playing. Those are the types of plays that can crush freshmen, and he just showed no sign whatsoever of losing confidence or poise. And that said a lot to me, because as the season goes on, they play better teams. There's going to be plays that don't work out, and you got to come back and play. He showed me a lot this last week against West Virginia.
Yeah, for sure. I want to move over here. We had Kalani on maybe 3-4 weeks ago, and you know, he's the best. And I asked him this question, kind of knowing how he would answer it. I was a little bit surprised at just how heavy he leaned into it. I just started noticing, and this is year 3 with Jay down there, that BYU football is starting to receive the same type of national coverage that sounds a lot like Utah. Like, the defense is given the benefit of the doubt, right? And, you know, they know that whether it's Jake under center, Jake leaves, now it's Bear. It's like, okay, well, he's going to be okay because defensively they're so incredibly stout. And so I asked Kalani, you know, it's 10 years with him as the coach, which is still wild. It seemed like Bronco left yesterday, but, you know, we're all getting older, Blaine. That's how it goes. And so I said, look, throughout the course of you building this thing through 10 years, how much of this has been you? How much of this has been Lavelle? How much of this has been Kyle? How much of this has been the coaches that you played for and coached with? And he said, it's all Lavelle, it's all Kyle, it's all the mentors that I've had that taught me how to do this. And, you know, there are just tremendous similarities now between the two programs, namely with Jay down there, year 3, and this defense, to your point, being as physical and as stout as they are. I wondered what you made of that dynamic.
Yeah, here's the thing. It takes a brilliant leader to recognize the great leadership qualities and the things that people do that they're working for on their way up, then to take the little bits and pieces, because there's a lot of Lavelle in him. There's a lot of Kyle in him. There's some Gary Anderson in him in the way he approached D-line play. Do you know what I mean?
Sure.
And I think Kalani is really gifted at knowing what parts of each of those individuals fit his own style the best. Then he adopted them. And like culturally, he doesn't want to be Kyle culturally. Doesn't want to be anything close to Kyle. He wants to be Lavelle culturally, right? Where football needs to be fun. Football, I want kids to love football. I want people to come here because they want to come play in a fun environment. On the defensive side of the ball, he's adopted Kyle Whittingham's. We're not just going to go stop people. We're going to physically beat the living crap out of them. Like when we play them, like we are going to be so aggressive and hit people so hard. We're going to force turnovers. We're going to get big plays on defense, and people will not want to play us because we are so physical on defense. That's from Kyle, right? And I think both Kalani and Jay bring that from Kyle, right? Now, I think Jay brings a little – I think Jay has a strategic mind. I think Jay's more flexible than Morgan and Kyle. I think Jay's like, hey, I had to go play at Weber when I didn't have the best athletes on the field every time. And so – yes, I love to play man blitz, but there's some offenses that we play against that I'm not going to play man blitz that Kyle and Morgan would. I'm going to play some combo zones, and we're going to zone blitz. So I think Jay has a little more open mind about we're going to tweak the defense slightly depending, like my base is man blitz, and we're going to be really, really aggressive. And when we arrive at the football, we're going to like knock people silly. But I'm not going to be all man blitz. I'm going to be a little more flexible with what we do because I learned that from my time at Weber. And now he does have great athletes in every position on defense, and he still does that. So there's a little bit of everybody, but I think the brilliance of Kalani is to recognize the great characteristics of people and then adopt the ones that fit his style. And there's some things he appreciates about other people. Like I know he appreciates Kyle's leadership, but he's like, yeah, Kyle Ship's leadership style as a head coach, that doesn't really fit my personality. Lavelle's fits mine better. He knows who he is, but he knows what success looks like, and there's a little bit of all of that in what he does. And I think that's why he's had success. That's why coaches want to coach for him, and that's why kids want to come play for him. And now you add, hey, they're in the Big 12. Now when they go sit down with a recruit, he's got all of those things, and he doesn't have to make an excuse for, yeah, but we are independent, and we're only going to play 3 or 4 good teams a year, and I know we're not in the national spotlight, and we don't get the respect, but come play for the culture. Now he says, come play for the culture, and oh, by the way, we competed for a Big 12 championship last year. We had number 1 defense in the Big 12. We're going to get nothing but better, and if you come, we're going to play for we're going to play in the CFP, college football playoffs, and in the championship at some point in the next couple of years. So come. And now that's a believable message to go along with all the other things. And that's really turned the tide in his ability to recruit. And that's evidence. And right now, the recruiting class for next year is ranked number 1 in the Big 12. Who'd have ever thought that was possible at BYU, right?
Well, for sure. And, you know, I had forgotten I said this, but 5 years ago, my old producer, who is no longer with the station, sent me a soundbite where when the NIL stuff started becoming real, I said, this is going to be something that BYU will be able to figure out and capitalize on with the power of the purse and the economic power down there. And to all your points about who Kalani is and playing for him, I understand all of that. But we saw Texas Tech roll into town, and Cody Campbell and those boys economically infused that roster, and the talent just pops. And obviously, BYU has been able to figure it out both on the football side and the basketball side. So, and look, you have to be able to do that in the modern day of college football, and it's not against the rules. It's very much allowed. So what has been kind of your understanding of how economically BYU seems to be able to hang with the big boys, at least early returns indicate as much? Blaine?
Yeah, BYU's got an advantage over a lot of schools in that some schools have some big-time donors, billionaires, but the depth of those donors is just a few, right? So BYU has tremendous depth of donors. And we all hear about Ryan Smith all the time, and then Todd Peterson and Josh James. There are just so many. Well, there's very few that are the level of Ryan, right? But there's dozens of the next level. Most universities don't have that. So it's not a huge strain. Nobody has to go give $50 million because they don't need that. They'd rather have 50 people give $1 million, right? And they have that kind of depth, which some schools don't have. That puts them in the game. And BYU, they hire GMs for both basketball and football, and the GM's responsibility is to make sure they don't overpay. So, and in some instances, a player will come in and say, "This is what I want," and they'll sit down. They literally look at a spreadsheet and say, "Here's what your production was. Here's what you are. This and this and this, and this is what is the going rate for you, and we will pay that because we're going to pay, but we're not going to overpay." So if Purdue wants to overpay you or Miami wants to overpay you, and you want to do that, but you want to leave this culture, then not only are we going to be okay with it, we're going to support you doing it. If that's what you want. And frankly, Kalani wants guys that want to be here for a fair NIL arrangement, that want to be here for the culture, and aren't just because the guy that comes because you overpay, somebody overpays the next year and they're gone. And he wants a little bit of consistency. You saw very few kids transfer out. The ones that transferred out last year were ones that they talked to and just said, "Listen, you're not going to get reps this next year. Let's help you find a place to go play." Or there were a couple that they just didn't feel it was fair to match what they were matched. They didn't lose anybody for a fair market value, and that's their philosophy down there, right? The combination of the culture and all that. But let's remember this, Spencer. If you're Texas Tech or BYU and you can compete, if you're in the American Conference or the Mountain West, it doesn't matter that you can compete. Like there were two keys for BYU. The first was they had to be in a power conference to compete. It's all the money in the world. Like you can pay NIL guys, pay NIL dollars out left and right, but if you're paying in the Mountain West Conference, you still can't compete. They had to have both, and that combination of both, and the way they're approaching it from a business perspective and trying not to make bad business decisions is really, really working for them, and it's gotten momentum.
All right, before I set you loose, as I've been kind of gently alluding to, I wonder if y'all are ready for this basketball team. I don't know how much you've seen, AJ, but, everything you've heard, it's that and more. All he has to do is keep working and just getting better in certain areas because he does everything well. He's built like a modern-day player. You look at this schedule, I mean, Nebraska, North Carolina, Villanova, UConn, Wisconsin, Georgetown, for the old Big East fans like myself. Do you think folks down there this is on paper, it's probably the most talented group of basketball players we've ever had here, certainly dating back to the teams Rick had with Andre and Britton and Van Horn and Doliak. And, there are probably 3-4 NBA guys on this roster, maybe even more. And if you want to do something in the tournament, you have to have pros, and Kevin has them. So you think you guys are ready for this ride with this BYU basketball team?
Spencer, it's so exciting. It's like, I think back, when's the last time BYU had multiple good pro players on the team? It's all the way back to Danny Ainge, Fred Roberts, Greg Kite. Those guys all played a decade in the NBA, right? Danny was a star. Fred was a good role player. Kite was a good role player. They might have 3 NBA starters on this team this year.
Mm-hmm.
Which is nuts, right? So first off, that's exciting. The big question, I've had is, wow, how do you coach that much talent. And then I remember Kevin Young's been coaching in the NBA. Like that's what every team looks like. You have tons of talented guys. You got to figure out how to keep them all happy. If anybody can do it with the NBA experience on the staff, they understand that. They understand how to keep people happy and to make them feel like they have worth and figure out how to keep pushing them to get better. So I do think he's equipped to manage that type of roster because that's what he's done, right? So that's helpful. And to AJ, so you remember Charles Albuo, right?
Sure, yeah.
Great physical specimen, one of the best defenders I think that's ever played at BYU. So he's working with a team. He's a graduate assistant. He's in grad school, and he does a lot of the individual workouts. And he works out AJ a lot in the mornings. AJ always comes unbelievably driven. Like his folks, I've had a chance to meet Ace, his dad, and his dad. Remember, his dad was a police officer. Like he comes from a great family with great work ethic. I don't know if you had a chance to be around him much, but for how good this kid is, you will not believe how grounded he is and what kind of work ethic he has. And I said to Charles the other day, I'm like, you've been working out with AJ, and I said, like, what do you think? He just stops and he looks at me and he grabs my wrist and he says, dude, you've never seen anything like this kid.
Yep.
I was like, okay, now I'm really excited. Now I'm really excited. He's like he just paused and like grabbed my wrist and looked me in the eyes and goes, dude, like this, you've never seen something like this kid is a generational player and he is so talented, but he works so hard and he is so grounded. And he goes, I love working with this kid. He is going to be so good. And he's a good teammate. And I'm like, okay, now I am really, really excited about this team.
Yeah, I mean, every time I watch him, you see a little McGrady, you see a little LeBron, like you see the great wings. That's how he's built. That's how he plays. And I love that we hired Alex up here. I think he's the guy for the job. But, man, it's going to be interesting to watch the way this thing transpires. Look, it's always a pleasure. Thanks so much for your time. And have a great week, man. We'll get you back on soon if you have time for us, okay?
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Hey, by the way, I'll give a big shout-out to Alex, too, because he's a good friend. He and his wife are friends of our family. And if anybody can do it at the U, Alex can do it at the U. So it's hard. It's going to be hard to match all the NIL stuff that's going on out there. That's the tough part. But I believe in Alex, and I think we're going to have two great programs in the long term here in Utah.
Yes, sir. Blaine, be well, okay?
All right, brother.
All right, Blaine Fowler, former BYU quarterback, longtime friend of the show. Used to come on the Bill and Spence show back in the day as well. So always good to catch up with Blaine. We'll get to the 5 o'clock hour of the program. We'll bring in Scott Mitchell. We are going to say goodnight around 6 o'clock to send you to Monday Night Football between the Chiefs and the Jaguars. We'll catch a quick break. Before we do that, Ryan from the Dish Pros. Hopefully you've had all the pro and college football that you desire. If you're a sports fan and you do not have Dish, I can promise you are doing it wrong. Save money on the internet, too. Bottom line, call the Dish Pros at 801-424-DISH. What's going on, buddy?
Spence, thanks so much. And yes, love watching the games, and nothing neater than having a DVR that you can record 16 games at once if you wanted to. It's such a neat feature with the Hopper. Biggest DVR out there, Auto Hops commercials. Guys, the promotion is so stacked. If you call us up right now, we can set you up with the 3 months of Dish's top package, absolutely free, plus a 2-year promotion with a price guarantee that it's not going to change for the next 2 years. And also the multi-sports pack, which includes the NFL Red Zone free for 6 months, and Paramount Plus and Showtime on top of that. Call us today. Upgrade. Get set up with the best deals out there, the best price when you call us. Lower your bill. And, guys, I'll tell you, it's $30 to $60 a month cheaper in most cases. You just got to call and see how much we can help you with, especially when we can also help with internet. Don't be trapped in that cable bundle because there's probably a better option, not even a better speed for less money, but you got to call and find out. 424-DISH. It's 801-424-3474.
All right, there he is, Ryan from the Dish Bros. We'll catch a quick break. Back in just a little bit. Keep it right here on ESPN 700. I will bring in Scott Mitchell, 5 o'clock hour of the show, former Utah quarterback. We're going to say goodnight in time for Monday Night Football. It is the Kansas City Chiefs taking on the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Chiefs are a slight favorite, even though they're on the road. So that'll come your way when we say goodnight at 6 o'clock. But gut check time for RSL, and they passed the test with a 1-0 win over their rival, Colorado Rapids. Sporting director Kurt Schmidt on the program on a Monday. Kurt, happy Monday, sir. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. What'd you like most about the way your boys stepped up to the challenge? We had Jason on last week, Pablo. It felt like a must-win. I know that's a little bit dramatic, but you guys are trying to be on the right side of that playoff line. So what'd you like most about that 1-0 win?
Yeah, I don't think it's dramatic at all at this stage in the season. So, for that to be a must-win is spot on, and obviously we pulled through. And what I like the most is just the mentality and the grit and the determination to close out the game. I think the last 30 was a bit rough, but we had guys making defensive plays, and Rafa was immense in goal, and the guys got the result. And so at this time of year, that mentality is critical.
I don't even know what else to ask you about Rafa, because every week I feel like I ask you about him. It just feels like he has really brought a lot of stability to a position, Kurt, that last year was a little bit in flux, as you know. So I guess I'll just continue to ask you, as you continue to witness not just what he does for you when he is out there playing, but what he means for this group as far as his leadership goes. What's the latest take you have on your keeper?
I mean, I think like you, it's not something that's evolving or changing much. He's just been fantastic the whole year, whether that's, the plays he makes in goal, the confidence guys have, playing through him in possession. I think he brings a calm and a composure back there that's really critical to how we play when we start possession, and just his leadership and his presence in the locker room, right? And win, tie, or lose, after the game, he's the guy that you got to listen to and sets the tone for the team. And obviously, his age and experience and where he's played give him the respect to be able to do that.
And ultimately, we saw this with Nicky when Nicky kind of really kind of blew up to the point where he was just something you could count on almost every single match. It has to infuse a tremendous amount of confidence in the group when the guy behind you is willing and capable to make these incredible saves. What does it do as far as, is the confidence level in a keeper like this, does it allow you to do things differently tactically, or is simply just confidence that it inspires in the group, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit of the latter. The confidence it inspires in the group. They're not worried about giving up a shot here or there, so they actually play with a little more freedom, maybe a little more aggression, which actually helps them make more defensive plays, which that's almost counterintuitive, but the reality of they know that Rafa can make a save when they need him, so we almost try not to need him as much because of how free they're playing in front of him.
So for the second straight game, Pablo marched out the same 11. Does it feel like we've landed on what and look, you're going to be without Diego. I think Brian has been called up as well. Ojeda's been called up. So there will be changes, but does it feel like maybe that's as close to a first choice 11 that we've seen all year?
Yeah, I still wouldn't say that, to be honest. I think it's still, as you said, we're going to need a different group of guys this weekend to get a result in Seattle. Gozo's gone as well, and he'll come back into the fold at some point. And, I think right now it's about playing the guys that are in form. So it's maybe in some ways not ideal to be as locked in with the 11, this late in the season. But it's really, it can be game dependent. It can be tactics, opponent dependent. But most importantly, it's form dependent. And so the guys that are playing well are the guys that are going to play. And I think that we have a lot of talented players that are close and are pushing and aren't happy sitting on the bench. So, I think that competition is good for the group in training and them pushing each other every day.
So the acquisition of DeAndre has allowed Noel Caliscan to play more, I guess, is it I'll just ask you, is his natural position midfield? I honestly didn't know. because I felt like he was playing that back spot that now DeAndre's playing. So is this a more preferred position for Caliscan now that he's been moved into the midfield?
Yeah, I mean, that's where he played in college. That's where he played nearly all his minutes, if not all his minutes for Monarchs. When we scouted him and brought him in, that's the position where he's most comfortable, I think, from the standpoint of where he's played a lot of minutes. But he's just a very smart player, and so you can put him in different spots, and even within the game, whether it's off a set piece or if he finds himself in a different position, he's smart enough to play that position in the proper way. So he adapted to right back really quickly and gave us some stability there. I think the first time I had really seen him play there was preseason this year, and he showed that he can do it. And so I think now that he's playing centrally, he's a little maybe more comfortable there as well, and he's settling in, and I think he's given us something that we haven't had as much of the last couple of years there.
So we had it was Pablo last week. I asked him about Emeka and Ellie, and of course he had the health stuff, the health issues, and if you're not healthy, you're not going to be top form. But it feels like he's been healthy for a little bit and still not there in the 11. And this is a guy who last year I thought was one of your better players all year long. And I don't know if it's pressure with the armband. I don't know if it's getting back to fully, fit and being in good form after the injury. But can you shed any light on that?
I think a little bit of is partnerships and pairings at times as well. I know Pablo's looking at that. Emeka's fine. Is he playing every game this year at as high a level as he played last year? I think he'd be honest and say no. But he's a very, very good player that when we need him, he's going to give us good quality minutes. And, he hasn't played, he hasn't started, the last, 3 games. But, prior to that, he started, the 6 games prior to that. So he's still obviously factoring in quite a bit for us, and it's still a position where we have a lot of quality depth.
Tell me how he's doing. I would imagine, and we've had him on the show a few times. He's such a smart, thoughtful young man, and hopefully he just understands this is part of the process. But maybe as a competitor, there's a little frustration setting in. How's he handled this?
I don't know if it's frustration setting in, right? That implies something maybe a little permanent, but I think he's certainly not happy sitting on the bench, which, is pushing him to be focused and perform every day in training. When he gets his minutes in the games, whether that's to start or in the last 20 or 30, he's going to be sharp and focused.
So let's turn. Actually, no. I wanted to ask you about, now that we have some sample and data size from your summer transfer window decisions. Let's start with Olatunji. And it's pretty obvious that he's an athlete in a way that it's tough to find when it comes to a player playing that position. He's just a big, strong, fast guy, and you want dynamic athletes up top. Now that we've had a couple of, few games and training and things we don't see, what have been the returns of the Olatunji decision?
I think he's done really, really well for us. And, I think one of the benefits of a guy like Victor up top is even when he's not, it's not going his way in that game or even that play, he's still a big handful for guys to deal with. And, center backs aren't going to like playing against him. He's a big target, and whether he's winning the ball or not, that they're not going to win the ball. So I think he's a good reference point. He's always looking for balls in behind, which is something we saw a lot of him when we scouted him. That's how he scored his goal a couple games ago. And he's been really, really effective in occupying center back, staying on the highest line, stretching the defense and creating space. And obviously the size that he adds on set pieces has been incredibly useful as well.
Got 8 games for Ruan Cruz, 7 starts. And, strikers, fairly or unfairly, are judged on production and numbers when it comes to goals and assists. We did see him get on the score sheet with an assist for Diogo's goal. But what can you share with us about the progress and the process of getting kind of Ruan up to speed?
Yeah, I think he's getting up to speed. But that is, I think, the right way to term it. And like you said, he got a really good assist. His ability to bring the ball down and the ball he played across to Diogo was really well weighted and well placed. And you can see in his game, he's just so hungry to impact the game, right? Defensively, He's pressing, he's working, he's tracking when he needs to. Offensively, he's pushing. He wants to score. You can see it in his movements, in his eyes, even like how badly he wants to get on the score sheet. And I see a lot of hunger and desire from him. Every time the ball gets wide in a crossing or a dangerous position, you see him, sprinting as fast as he can to get in the box, to get to the highest line and be a threat. So, I think he's coming along really well, and we'll see more and more from him. But it was good to see him get on the score sheet this weekend, and I hope he'll help us out in these last couple games as well.
DeAndre opens his bank account. First of all, why do people? What's that saying about? I asked Jason last week, and he yelled at me on air. Why do people say open your bank account when somebody gets their first goal with the team?
I don't think it's the bank account. I think they just say he's opened his account.
Oh.
And it's one of these Britishisms that have, that stuck around in America, in the English speakers world. So I don't know the genesis of that, but yes, they've opened their account is sort of the phrase.
Okay. Well, anyway, he did that, and it was good to see him score a goal, certainly from that position. To be dangerous up the flank is something that I think is obviously beneficial. But just same question, how's the process going, kind of integrating him?
Yeah, well, first, I'm sorry Jason yelled at you.
Thank you.
I'll talk
Thank you.
to him about that.
It hurt my feelings, Scott.
Yeah, I can tell. No, look, DeAndre is, like I said before, I think he's been helpful on and off the field. His leadership in the game, in the locker room, in the game, on the field, in training, is something that we needed and we continue to need and get from him. And his his physicality, his athleticism, his speed has been super helpful for us when late in games he's able to recover and track. And we're used to having kind of one guy in Jay Glad on the back line with those attributes to kind of clean up the messes, and now having two is really, really helpful and helps us clean things up defensively. And then, obviously he can add things to us in the attack. And, as he gets up the flank on the right, he got in a really good goal-scoring position. We obviously didn't sign him for his goal-scoring prowess or even his attacking prowess, but it's great to see him get on the score sheet as well. And it just gives players confidence, no matter what position you play. If you can bag a goal, you're flying with confidence.
All right, moving over to Seattle, a club that you know just a little bit. And here's some breaking news for you, Kurt. Saturday, Seattle, 55 degrees and raining. So shocking that it will be raining in Seattle in October. But Lumen's a tough place, and that's a good team. Now, as I'm looking at this, they're on 49 points, and they cannot catch LAFC on 56. And I don't think, they might be locked into their spot. So do you think there's a chance that maybe we don't necessarily see a first-choice lineup from Seattle? And what do you guys have to do to go up there and get what would be a massive 3 points?
Yeah, they're missing a few guys as well. Albert got a red card in the last game. They've got a player at the U20 World Cup as well, maybe one or two injuries, and, they've got a player with the national team in the U.S. So they're missing a few guys. We're missing a few guys. I don't really think it advantages either team. If I know Schmetz up there and the way, the guys that I know that, there's still a decent chunk of guys on that team that were brought in, when I was working up there, and those guys don't really know how to take their foot off the gas, and that's what we have to expect. Whether they're locked into their position or not, they're going to want to get a win in front of their home fans and send everyone home happy. So we know it's going to be a tough game. But obviously, the last couple of weeks for us, you termed it earlier, were essentially must-win games, and we're going to look at this the same way, as this is a game that we have to win. Winning this game will get us into the postseason, which is critical. And the more, if we can win both of these last games, we know that that'll helps us in our positioning and our seeding. So, yeah, I don't think they're going to take their foot off the gas. It'll be a tough game for us. But I also know that, with that mentality on their side comes a little bit of extra pressure as the home side with such a big crowd, and they know the expectations of that crowd. So it'll be upon us to frustrate them and heap more pressure on them to open things up and give us some spaces to attack into.
So you'll be without Diego, Ojeda, and Gozo. Is it just those three?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah,
all right, man.
Gozo's at the U20s. They play They play Thursday in the round of 16, I believe, and Brian and Diego will be with their national teams.
Okay, before I set you loose, if you do qualify, and of course we're all hoping that you do, fall soccer is very, very dramatic and fun. It would mark the 5th straight playoff appearance for RSL, which is the longest streak in the West. I didn't know that, but that's pretty wild that 5 straight years would be the longest in the West. Just what sort of accomplishment would that what would that say? Just as far as like, look, this is kind of what we do here.
Yeah, I think it sets a floor, right, and a model of consistency. So it's important that we set that floor because you have to get in the playoffs to compete for a trophy, and we want, everybody wants to win. We want to win MLS Cup. Well, you can't do that unless you are there in the competition, right? And so, whether you finish first, 4th, 6th, or 9th is, irrelevant once the games start. You got to win the games that are in front of you. I think we did that a couple years ago when we got in and made things difficult for a few teams and got past a couple rounds. And right now, this is the time of year where form and how you're playing and what your mentality is like sometimes carries the day over things like talent. So that's what we have to bring to these last few games and the playoffs looking forward.
All right, buddy. Appreciate it. Best of luck this weekend. Thanks for the time, okay?
Yeah, appreciate it.
Kurt Schmidt, RSL Sporting Director. RSL is up at Lumen Field in Seattle on Saturday night, where breaking news in Seattle in October, it's 55 degrees and raining. Seattle's on 49 points, 13, 9, and 10, 55 goals scored, 47 allowed. RSL on 40 points, 12, 16, and 4, 36 goals scored. Oh, that's awful. That's worst in the West. Anyway, they're going to have to score goals Saturday night to win. There you go. All right, 5 o'clock hour. We're going to bring in Scott Mitchell, preview Utah, Arizona State. But let's bring in Ryan from the Dish Pros. Give him a call at 801-424-DISH. What's going on, Ryan?
Spence, thanks so much. The amount of money we get to save people is so much fun. And, guys, the thing is just got to get more people to call because this is a great opportunity with the promotions we have with internet and the promotions we have with Dish right now. They're fantastic. You get 3 months free right now with a 2-year promotion. Guys, and I'll tell you, if you're a cable or DirecTV customer, you're $30 to $60 a month cheaper when you make the phone call. Plus, you get 3 months free. Plus, you get the NFL Red Zone and movie channels and Paramount Plus free, and you get this big upgrade. The equipment's faster, it's bigger. It auto-records your locals. It'll auto-hop commercial breaks. You'll get the games you want to watch and be able to watch them with ease and with the best DVR out there. Call us up today, take advantage of that, and ask us about our internet offers. Great promotions right now with internet. Lots of different providers right now. I have about 7 internet providers available. So I'll have a solution for you for one, but maybe 2 or 3 different options, and it will be cheaper, but you got to call and find out. 801-424-DISH. Call us, 801-424-3474.
All right, 3 hours down, 1 hour to go. The final hour of the program on a Monday afternoon comes your way next, right here on ESPN 700. All right, let's get a drive at 5 time, Monday afternoon style. 7 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock. Happy Monday to you. Hopefully you had a great weekend. Jam-packed, full of, well, a lot of shocking results in both college and pro football. BYU was able to hold off West Virginia. They won that game in Provo on Friday night, 38-24. As a result, they move up to number 18 in the AP poll. University of Utah back at it this weekend. Big one, Arizona State in town for a late kick. That is 8:15 Mountain Time. Our pregame coverage with Porter Larson and Trevor Riley and others will begin just after 4 o'clock. So set your alarms for that. Utah is a slight favorite at home. 5.5 points is the line. It opened up. Utah was favored by 6.5. It moved down to 5.5, and that's where we're at as of now. BYU hits the road for a road trip to Arizona, and BYU a slight favorite in that game. A 1.5-point favorite to beat Arizona. BYU opened up as a 2.5-point favorite. It moved a full point towards Arizona. So basically a pick 'em. Big one for BYU. Big one for Utah, as we've been talking about all show long. I don't think 2 conference losses eliminate you entirely, but it might. Certainly 2 conference losses to 2 teams that might have something to say about this thing at the end of the Big 12 season. Already losing the tiebreaker to Texas Tech. And if you lose the tiebreaker to Arizona State, like I said, not impossible. But that's going to be a tough one should Utah not be able to get it done. So game week for us on the station. Excited to have Utah football back after a bye week and hopefully a get-right week when it comes to some of the health issues that Utah football seems to be dealing with. If you missed Coach Witt from earlier, that's up on our website, ESPN700sports.com. No season enders, so that's the good news as far as the health of the roster. Kyle always lets us know if there's a season-ending injury, and he said earlier today during his media that there's no season enders when it comes to Utah's health as of now. So big one is Arizona State rolls into town after winning a couple of conference games against Baylor and TCU. ASU was also off this weekend. So game week for us, which is obviously a lot of fun after a bye week behind us. The Big 12 landscape continues to just be very confusing as far as who's going to be in the mix at the end. But a lot of upsets in the world of college football. The number 1 and 2 teams in the country to start things off in the AP were Texas and Penn State. Neither of those teams are currently in the top 25. Just to show you how chaotic that this sport is, to try to analyze kind of how it goes down. Both those teams upset over the weekend, and the Big 12 continues to be very, very convoluted. So, like I said, I do not think 2 losses ultimately eliminate you. Texas, by the way, is favored over Oklahoma. It is the Red River rivalry down to the Cotton Bowl in Dallas, Texas. So that's a big one coming up this weekend. But Arch Manning, they cannot protect him. He was sacked another 6 times, and he just doesn't have time. The poor kid is just under such a microscope when it comes to being a Manning and having to play high-level college football. I'm not sure how fair a lot of this criticism was. But we are inching closer and closer, learning more about this Utah football team. This is a big one. It is a massive, massive game, and we need to lean into trying to understand more about who exactly they are. So, as I always say, go from observation to conclusion, and this is a big test for Utah. Arizona State preseason probably received most of the love as far as winning the conference. We were not allowed a Big 12 preseason media poll because we all botched it so badly a year ago. The schools we thought would win were at the bottom. The schools we thought would be at the bottom were at the top. But Arizona State, Vegas favorite early on in the preseason. That right now is Texas Tech, almost by a long shot. Tech moves up into the top 10. There are 4 Big 12 teams in the top 25, including BYU. Utah continues to be in the area of others receiving votes. Technically like the number 29 team in the country. Utah beats Arizona State at home. They'll probably jump into the top 25 as Arizona State is currently number 21 in the AP poll. They did move up a couple of spots even though they were idle because of all the chaos in the world of college football. Monday Night Football tonight features the Chiefs and the Jags. A game is in Jacksonville. That will come your way right after we say goodnight. We're going to bring in Scott Mitchell to kind of break down the current situation with the Utes. What's he seen from Devin Dampier? What does Utah need to do to get the win over Arizona State? And if they're able to do that and BYU is able to handle their business at Arizona, coming up next week as we preview BYU Utah, I'm sure both these teams will be in the top 25. All right, Monday Night Football comes your way coming up on the other side. It is the Chiefs and the Jags from Jacksonville. Kansas City is a 3.5-point favorite in this game, even though they are on the road. So stay tuned for that. The Chargers are placing Omarion Hampton on injured reserve. Great. It's my running back. Rough start for the Fighting Gerald Fitzgeralds, my fantasy football team, and now my running back's on IR.
It's a marathon.
Yeah.
Who are you going to pick up?
Probably his backup. I don't even know who it is because they lost Najee Harris towards ACL too. So the Chargers are in trouble. I'll have to look up, see who his backup is.
See if this guy's available.
Who?
That Commanders running back.
He's
Had a
not.
big day.
He's good. He's not just on the waiver wire. He's their starting running back. That's not how these things work.
Fine.
Spencer Schrader. Poor place kickers, man. Spencer Schrader tore his ACL and his MCL on a missed extra point attempt.
Ugh. That's rough. I remember when there were a couple of kickers actually that hurt, like celebrating.
Martin Gramatica, I think he hit his helmet on a goalpost and never kicked again. Moron.
And then the only way you can really top that or make it worse is to miss a field goal and then get hurt. That's a bummer.
Miss an extra point, tear your MCL, ACL. That's worst case scenario when it comes to a kicker situation. Yeah, odd week of NFL football. It's the first Sunday in the history of the NFL where 2 4-0 teams lost at home, as the Bills lost to the Pats and the Eagles lost to the Broncos. So we'll see what comes our way tonight, little Monday Night Football. So that comes your way after a quick break. Porter, what is our Tuesday show situation?
On a Tuesday edition of The Drive, we'll chat with our friend Sean Syed of Sumer Sports. Tony Parks drops by. Tony is going to be doing some MC stuff for the Utah Sports Hall of Fame. Of course, Nate Orchard, Star Lotalele, a couple of guys that we talked about with the Utah football inductions. So, it's Sean, Tony Parks. I think we'll chat with Bill Riley, the voice of the Utes. If not, we'll try to get Sly on the show or someone Utes related, and we'll go from there on a Tuesday.
Did you go through Paul Kirk, Bill Riley's handler?
Not yet.
Okay.
Bill hasn't officially forced me to do that. Paul helps. Paul helps make sure the schedule's all lined up. But Bill still allows me to text him.
He's changed, man. Bill's changed.
It's like
handler. Goodness.
Who is it that lives in Larry David's neighborhood, but you have to get approval to have a conversation with him?
Oh. It's not Conan, is it?
It might be Conan, actually. But yeah, it is Conan.
Yeah, that was Conan. Yeah. I missed that show. I missed that show.
I have approval to text, but that's it.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, I'll be live on site with our good friends at ARUP Blood Services in Sandy.
Yes.
Last time we were there, we had 2 Devin Dampier autographed footballs to give away.
I think we'll have something tomorrow.
Sweet. So roll by.
Big tease for you.
Give blood, save a life, because according to Porter, we will have something for you tomorrow.
Hey, even if that something, Spence, is your blood, for a good cause, of course.
Well,
it's something.
Well, look, something is better than nothing.
There you go. Even if that something is giving away your blood.
I can tell you that we've got great snacks and drinks out there.
And we need your blood.
We do.
Just to be clear.
We want your blood. All right, this is getting weird. Come on out, donate blood, save a life, and we will give you something, which is better than nothing. All right, we'll say goodnight. Special thank you, Max Brown, Scott Mitchell, Blaine Fowler, Kurt Schmidt. Any of the sound you missed from the show, website is ESPN700sports.com. Make sure to download our mobile app and take us on the go. And then if you like what we do in our space every afternoon for 4 full hours of radio, what a weird thing to do for a living. But this is what we do for 4 hours. We're here for the people. Check out the podcast page, which is called The Drive with Spence Checketts. That's available wherever you get your shows. So subscribe to it. Rate it, say nice things if you will, and then give us all the stars. It helps the program. For Porter, I'm Spence saying goodnight. Enjoy some Monday Night Football coming up on the other side right here on ESPN 700.